Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Trustees meeting for August 9th, 2022. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, may you call the roll, please?
Mayor Farmstead.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rose.
Here.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Ayers.
Here.
Trustee Butler.
Here.
Trustee Murphy and Trustee Sorcelli are not present.
All right, thank you for that. Next we have is citizen participation. This is a chance for anyone to speak to anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Looks like we might have some signed up. If you are under citizen participation tonight, if you'd please come to the front, to the podium, and state your name and address for the record, and if you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you. So we'll start out with Doug Carlander. All right.
Hi, my name is Doug Carlander. I live at 545 Mayo Court. And for years, we've had a problem there with after school, the parents parking on the street and not parking properly. And we've tried several different things to solve this problem. What we're worried about, some of the parents drive up and don't park along by the sidewalks like they're supposed to. It's when they park, there'll be one park by the sidewalk, and there'll be another one. There's double parking. This last year, they were parking forward across at the end of the court. So kids are getting out of school. They're running back and forth between the vehicles, and people have to back up to get going forward again. The other thing that they also started last year was the parents in the wintertime would park like 4 across, and then they would, 1 or 2 of them would leave their cars running, get out of their cars, go up to the school to get their kids, and then come back. So it's got to be a really dangerous situation. So I noticed, I've talked to Sheriff Jim about it several times, and we've tried some different things, and every time if Sheriff Jim sends out one of his deputies, or he comes out after school, when they get out of school, he's even told them, you can't park 4 across, and they'll say, well, I didn't know that was against the law. So, and then he'll come out and get them straightened out again. Then the next day, they're usually pretty good about it. Then the day after that, because there's no sheriff or no deputy there, they're back to parking 4 across, and it's the same one that he talked to before that said, yeah, I didn't know that was against the law. But I noticed last week that at the end of our court, the town came out and painted a circle around there. And so the neighborhood is wondering, what is the intention of that circle?
Okay.
Nobody has told us anything really officially. We didn't get a letter or anything like that about what the plan is for down there. So we'd kind of like to know what the plan is, so we can go back to the neighbors and say, here's what their plan is. Is this okay?
Sure.
Now, my another neighbor is going to speak next,
Okay.
and he's going to tell you one of the problems that it creates with him as far as having like a cul-de-sac type of, an island or something there in the middle of that, end of that course.
Thank you. And just if you guys are curious, anything about Mayo Court tonight, we'll let you all go through, and then we'll have Administrator Kirk respond to all that. Thank you. So next would be, is it Ben?
No, it's Ron.
Ron, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I live at 530 Mayo Court.
Okay, thank you.
And if whatever's being proposed, like Doug said, we'd just like to know what they're doing. If they're going to do a raised island. There's a couple of us in the neighborhood that have long trailers, so we're a little concerned if somebody's parked along the edge, if we can even get turned around down there. And another thing would be fire truck. If there's people parked around there, I don't think you could ever, the size that they made it right now anyway, I don't think you could get a fire truck around there if there was an emergency. So I think that's probably it, just be able to get stuff around.
Sure. Thank you.
And the whole thing could get fixed if the neighbor next to me, he owns the property and there's some steps there. If he would put a gate up, it would fix the whole thing, but he chooses not to do that, which is fine. I mean, the mornings are fine. They just drop the kids off. Afternoons is where it's usually a problem.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's everything about Mayo. Those are two signed up there. Administrator Kirk, do you mind responding? This is Ivy, right? If this is Mayo.
Yeah, I know the area they're talking about. I know we've discussed it in the past at the staff level. I think that the striping was just intended to see how that functioned. There's no intention at this point of building any kind of raised curb or like what you'd see in a roundabout. That's not the intent. But I think the idea was if they striped something in the center of the cul-de-sac that people would maybe stop parking on top of it. At least I think that's the answer, but I'll have to follow up.
With their code enforcement, is there any way to actually, instead of using the sheriff's office, use code enforcement to actually ticket?
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. They'd be enforcing the vehicle codes, not our town municipal codes, which is what the code enforcement officer typically does.
Okay.
It's not real noticeable that there's anything around there. There's just dots in the pavement right now, so nobody will know anything right now.
Well, and that may be like, sometimes before they actually bring out striping equipment, they'll come and paint dots. We do the same thing if you do linear striping sometimes, like for parking stalls and those kinds of things. So
We just want them to be able to do something that's, would be reversible, rather than building something and then find out fire trucks can't get around there, ambulances can't get around there if they need to.
that's why we would use paint first.
Okay. And then what would be the next step?
We'll see how it works. If the paint works, then it'll be, then hopefully it'll be problem solved.
Thank you. Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, like Administrator Kirk said, it's still an issue. We'll look into, find a way to, if we can ticket instead of giving out warnings. Okay, next on the agenda is Joe Moss.
Evening, my name is Joe Moss. I live at 405 Michigan Avenue. And I am a project manager for a construction company that does infrastructure work, pipes, water, sewer, and concrete. I'm here to address the situation of the concrete on Michigan Avenue. I represent the residents of Michigan Avenue right here. I want to talk to you about safety, quality, and convenience. First off, the contractor that you have that is doing the work right now, in my opinion, is unsafe. Every place that I work, if you cut out a chunk of concrete sidewalk, you have sidewalk closed signs. You have barricades, which they do. Around their dirt piles at the end of the street, other municipalities require that they have signage and lit signage so that at night the car doesn't come barreling around and run into the pile of dirt. Ultimately, the town is liable for their actions. Quality. If you go down there and look, you will see that our mountable curb varies in height from the flow line to the top of the sidewalk, anywhere from 6 to 8+ inches. Standard is 6 inch. For mountable curbs, standard is 4.5 to 6 inch max. The other problem you have is that on this mountable curb, some of it is at an angle like this, and some of it is actually rounded like this. So where those two sections of concrete come together, you cause a dam because they don't match up. Compaction tests. I have not seen anybody out there doing compaction tests of the subgrade underneath the concrete. We have been required as a contractor in every other municipality to remove existing subgrade and replace it with 6 inches of good road base. Compact it, do a test. Secondly, there is not one concrete test pulled on any of the concrete trucks. You don't know what kind of concrete you're getting. Warranty. Normally, warranties extend to a 2-year period. Sometimes they're a minimum of 1 year. I have heard from various people in the town, well, it's okay, it's covered by warranty. The problem of it is that if you're gonna do a job, do it right the first time. Then you don't have warranty. The other problem of it is, with what I've observed from a contractor, those people probably won't even be in business 2 years from now. So then you go to a bonding company and pull their bond. The first question the bonding company is gonna ask the city is, what did you do to ensure the quality was there to begin with? There are no inspectors out there from the town. I'm gonna address the convenience of the people on the block.
Mr. Moss, we're over 3 minutes. I'll allow an additional minute if you need to get to the rest of your points.
The people on the block are going through the inconvenience, and we're looking forward to having new sidewalks. However, if we go into a warranty period, or if anything is removed down there right now, we have to go through it again. It's an inconvenience. I would invite each and every one of you to come on out. I will take off my job and show you the deficiencies out there. But I want to ask each and every one of you, go by there, please, and see if you would like that crap in front of your house.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Administrator Kirk, do you mind responding to that?
Yeah, I think the short answer is, I don't think I'll go point by point unless you'd like me to.
That'd be nice if you could.
Sure.
The standards, safety lights at night, compaction tests, concrete tests, and
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I don't have an answer for all of those. Keith Knoll, our Public Works Operations Manager, is overseeing the project, was not in the office this week. I got their email yesterday. I did go out and visit the site. There are areas of curbing that look like they are too tall. We do have staff that are going by and inspecting the project periodically. We typically have a contractor that does inspections of our projects as well through Baseline Engineering. They've done inspections for all of our other projects, so, but I honestly haven't seen, I'm not out there every day, as you can imagine, so I don't know if they're on site or not. Yeah, all of the things that Mr. Moss described are normal in the course of a project. Quality control testing of concrete, subgrade compaction, new base material. But without being able to speak to Keith and understanding the situation out there, I'm not sure I have a lot of specific answers. What I can say is I understand his point about, if there's warranty work and there has to be work that's done twice, that certainly is an inconvenience. I've never been on a job where there was no warranty work, or I've never had a job in 17 years of this, doing this kind of business in municipal government where we haven't had any warranty work. That's pretty unusual. Even with concrete that you think would be right the first time. And with really rigorous inspections. Sometimes those still, you still see areas of settling or cracking that we want replaced at the end of a warranty period. Our hope is that there won't be any, but I can't think of a time where there's never been any.
Okay.
So,
well, we have Mr. Moss's email. I did go out there and check too. I talked to the deputy town administrator, and he agrees as well. With Administrator Kirk, looks like there's some improvements need to be made. Mr. Knoll will be back next week. Yeah, maybe we get the rest of that information for.
he should be back tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay.
As far as I understand.
Hopefully we have him respond to these.
Yeah, we'll deal with those immediately.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. If you'd like to come to the front, yes, and we need your name and address too.
I'm Joanne Vigil, and I live on 325 Michigan Avenue.
Thank you.
I have a small car, and trying to get over that hump eventually when it dries out is going to be a pain. And I don't want to scrape the bottom of my car. And so are you liable to pay for little ramps that, I've seen rubber ramps that you can tack down and the water flows in underneath? And I've heard they run around $300, but it allows your car to have a little more height so that it can get up there without scraping.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We do not provide those out. It sounds like we're allowing them. You're not the first to come up and discuss the issue of kind of losing your driveway. As I understand, it's an ADA thing.
It is.
Okay. Yeah, we don't provide those, but I understand how inconvenient that is. All right. Well, thank you all. Appreciate that, and we'll follow up on these on the concrete quality. Next, we have Lynn Larson.
Len Larson, 205 Howell Street. I'd like to hear an update from the town about its intent for the property to go to Mountain Second. I know there was at one time some discussion about selling that lot. I want to tell you that the bike park that is there, the old bike park, is in use, and it's in frequent use. Our end of town is growing, and the kids in our end of town deserve to have that bike park retained, so they don't have to go all the way out to the rec center for the new bike park. The new bike park out there at the rec center is great, I'm sure, for these kids. They don't need to go that distance. They can just be right in practically in their neighborhood. Yeah, it's a couple blocks away or 3 blocks away, but it's very close. So I would urge the town to consider retaining that bike park, whatever else you do with all those properties along Second between Welsh and Mountain. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as I know,
Do you mean skate park?
yeah,
Yeah, skate park. I said bike park.
so it's both. That no official plans yet, but there's possibility of redevelopment after the old town hall project. Previous boards have talked about preserving that front half, just for the reason you state. Is there anything?
Nope, I think that's,
Did I say that correctly?
I think that's
Okay.
spot on. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Larson, and though you're always in the back of the room, we'll keep you informed as this progresses. Do we have anyone else that would wish to speak that did not sign up tonight? Chief?
Oh, never thank you.
That's who I-
I'm gonna go talk to. Okay.
Welcome.
So, I apologize, I ran a little late. Mayor Pro Tem, trustees, I'm here for introductory purposes only. My name is John Fan, and I am going to be your next sheriff in Montgomery County. So I had a primary opponent, which I was successful in running to the primary, but I don't have a general election opponent at this point. And so I will be the only name on the ballot, so I hope you vote for me when it comes time to do that. But again, I just want to introduce myself to you. I grew up kind of in Berthoud. I don't live in Berthoud. I live in Loveland. I know I'm supposed to say that. But I started here in the community back in '93 when I was working with Steve Charles as a paramedic firefighter, the Wayside Inn Fire at that time. And then I came back here almost 9 years ago when I was appointed by your predecessors to be the interim police chief, just as the transition to the sheriff's office was happening. So I'm excited to come back and serve the community and serve the county as a whole. And again, I look forward to working with you all closer and getting to know each other better. Again, I'm John, and I'd like to make your acquaintance after the meeting if we can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Just to be fair, could we get your address?
Yeah, it's 3993
Thank you.
North County Road 1 in Loveland.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming out. Is there anyone else? Anyone online, clerk?
There is not one.
Okay, thank you very much. We can move on to consent tonight. Would trustees like anything removed from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to combine and approve the items on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Grace has moved. Is that trustee Ayers a second?
No, me.
I think we already did.
Or did you do it?
Doesn't matter,
You
you
can
can have it.
Okay, fine, we'll give it to Hardy then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Trustee Hardy has seconded. Clerk, me a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Butler,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Parsnick.
Yes. Okay, we can move on to a second agenda item tonight, and that's the Farmstead second filing preliminary plat. And this is a public hearing, so I'll just think several of you have been through this before, but we'll have the applicant come up, our staff come up and present our planner. The applicant will come up and speak, the board will have a chance to ask questions, then we'll open up the public hearing for members of the audience. This is your chance to give testimony of your thoughts and experience. Same things apply, 3 minutes or less, name and address. We'll close that, bring it back to the board for deliberation on if the applicant is following the code and any recommendations we have, and then we'll go for a vote. Having said that, we have, is it Mr. Oling, are you? Okay.
Good evening, trustees. I apologize. Kurt Freeze is unable to make it tonight. He's sick today, so I'm here in his place. So, as you see on your screens, the Farmstead's second filing is a preliminary plat request for a piece of land south of Highway 56, County Road 8, west of County Road 1, east of Dorothy Drive, and north of the back ends of the properties that are on County Road 6C, just south of town. Currently today, this property, as you can see here, is kind of vacant, former farmland. This is it from Nebraska in the Farmstead right now, phase 1. This is the view from Tenderfoot. As far as zoning goes for the property, it is zoned a variety of different zoning districts, everywhere from neighborhood commercial to single-family residential, limited multifamily, and mixed-use residential. For the preferred land use map in our 2021 comp plan, this area was identified as being kind of suburban business within the Mountain Avenue overlay section right along Highway 56 and transitioning as you go further south into urban residential and finally suburban residential along the southern extent of this property. This project was approved in August 2021, a year ago from right now, by the Board of Trustees as an overall project that consists of over 220 acres of land. Tonight is really just for, let's see if I can put a laser pointer on the screen here, is really just for the area west of County Line Road here and east of Dorothy. So the entire project was approved and rezoned, but you tonight will only be hearing the preliminary plat request for 266 single-family attached and detached lots, a multifamily lot, future commercial tracks, and a community park on a total of 125 acres. As you can see, the preliminary plat request is fairly identical to the approved neighborhood master plan west of County Line Road. On this slide, I've kind of taken the landscape plan because it shows a little bit more detail and is a little easier to picture than that very basic plat map was. However, it's not quite the scale. I had to screenshot like 6 different slides to try to put it all on one screen, but I pasted it together as best as I could just to give you the general idea while I go through the project. So, the biggest thing is to kind of orient you here, this is Dorothy Drive. This exists right now. There are homes just to the west of this that have been built within the last couple of years or so. Tenderfoot Drive extends this way and would be extended with this preliminary plat request. So would Michigan Avenue and Nebraska Avenue. So those 3 street stubs will all already there, and they will all be extended east into this project. As there is also an existing trail corridor that runs behind the homes on both Michigan and Tenderfoot that would also extend further east into this project and would eventually lead to a large community park that I'll talk about more here in a minute, as well as a park project on the south end of Nebraska Drive that's currently in development right now in the first phase that would also have trail connections leading to the east to usable detention space. As for the open space and parks, I've touched on the trail connections that are existing pieces of the project. There will also be a trail connection running straight north and south through the middle of the project here that'll be able to connect this big community park to residents that live south of the park and into the usable detention area to the south. That usable detention area consists of a irrigated turf soccer field that will be able to be used whenever it hasn't just rained or it hasn't just had a lot of snow melts when the water is not in the detention area, as well as a loop walk trail to be able to get some exercise and walk the dog, enjoy your evening. On the next slide, I've kind of zoomed in on the park. This park is 10 acres in size. It's in the middle of this filing and in the general middle of the overall Farmstead development. It has a wide number of amenities as it is would be one of the larger parks in the town of Berthoud if approved. Amenities include an irrigation pond, soccer field, clubhouse with a pool, a playground, bocce-ball courts, a large turf play area. And like I mentioned before, this also has direct access both to the west to the existing Farmstead Trail, which will also connect through the Fickle Farm project and into Pioneer Park, as well as to the south towards the rest of this phase of the Farmstead's housing and to the play area and soccer field to the south. There are also some transportation impacts with this project. Like I mentioned before, it's tying into all the existing street stubs within the existing Farmstead project. It'll also have a couple outlets onto County Road 20 and Highway 56. But the two biggest pieces of the project that are coming through are improvements to the intersections of Highway 56 and County Line Road, and the, if approved, intersection of Nebraska and County Line Road. So this on your screen here is the intersection of County Line Road and Highway 56. On the left, you see what the applicant had provided at the neighborhood master plan level, which was a signalized intersection as required by their traffic study. The current flow, I'm sure if you've ever tried to come in from Longmont or Meade on County Line Road at 5 o'clock in the evening, you know it's impossible to turn left on the Highway 56. So with this project, it would create a much needed transition into upgraded intersection. With the master plan, they came through with a stoplight. However, due to the prevalence of the roundabout just a little bit further west at First Street and Highway 56, as well as the new roundabouts over at I-25 and Highway 56, the board made the recommendation of approval that a roundabout be studied at this location. So on the right side of your screen here, you can kind of see the roundabout is a little bit bigger and takes up a little bit more space than the signalized intersection, which would require the applicant to dedicates a little bit more land off the corners of their properties to the southwest and then eventually to the southeast as that side decides to come forward with platting. The northwest side of the roundabout is the cemetery, which is owned and operated by the town. So the roundabout, we would be able to make that work amongst our town staff here. And then to the northeast, there's an existing privately owned property that is not in town that the town would have to work with to acquire the right of way if that's the board's direction. The other improvement would be at Nebraska and County Line Road. And so this kind of shows, again, on the left side, the plans that were brought up at the neighborhood master plan meeting with the whole project, both the second filing and future phases to the east of County Line. And then the right side shows what a roundabout replacement would look like. So at Nebraska and County Line Road, it would just be a four-way stop, and that would only be triggered once the eastern side of the project comes along. The western side of the project would only require a single stop sign to be placed on Nebraska Avenue, as it wouldn't be a through street, and County Line Road's traffic would be left uninterrupted, similar to any other turnout on the road at this point. So if the board desires, roundabout could be used to replace that four-way stop. The traffic study is okay with the four-way stop, but because the board's shown an importance in the past or appreciation towards roundabouts, staff had the applicant explore this option as well. It would cause for a little bit of, it is a little bit bigger, so it would cause for reshuffling and maybe a loss of a couple lots within that general area, but the applicant owns all four corners of that intersection, so the town wouldn't have to work with anybody but the applicant to make this a reality if the board chose. Also, the roundabout wouldn't need to be constructed until the east side of the project came. So if this second filing is approved tonight, the right-of-way would be reserved on the western two properties of this, or western side of this intersection. However, it would only just be a stop sign until the eastern portion came through, as the traffic would warrant full installation of the roundabout. So I'm going to go back to the master plan, because when the master plan was approved by the Board of Trustees last year, they made a couple of recommendations of approval. The first one was that all alleys remain private within the development, and that has been taken care of. It's a little tough to see because this is so far zoomed out, but any alley-loaded products, whether it's this area right here or this alley in this area, they've all been platted as tracts, and they will be owned privately by the HOA of the Farmstead. This is an HOA-oriented development. No metro district exists in this location. But it will all be owned and maintained by the HOA, and the town would not be responsible for any maintenance or upkeep. Condition number 2 was that an eastern street connection be provided to the adjoining L&M property. That property is this one right here. You now know that property as Harvest 47. It came through earlier this year for neighborhood master plan approval, was approved by the Board of Trustees. The applicant has worked with the property owner to provide alley, so they are dedicating 10 feet from the north end of their site right through here. It's this really thin strip you can kind of see on the screen here. 10 feet of alleyway on their side. Harvest 47 will provide 10 feet of alleyway on their side. It will provide the full 20-foot width alley to be able to utilize that and have a shared maintenance agreement between the two projects, as well as alley access further south to line up with this north-south street right here that is 30 feet wide, which would allow for both the residents of Harvest 47 that would be, abutting this alley and the ones that would be across the street to be able to use to get through and for fire trucks, for access, for any kind of purpose. Which the 30 feet, is 10 foot wider than the 20-foot alleys, which we see standard throughout town. So there shouldn't be any issues with fire safety, ambulance, or just general, usage by residents. The third condition was that a parking study to consider visitor parking for the attached home area east of County Line Road be submitted with the preliminary plat submittal. That is this general area in this area. That was provided due to a lot of public comment and concerns, both for this project and other projects throughout that time that came through mid to late last year for availability of parking on the street for homes that don't have any street frontage. I'm going to go back to the landscape plan because you can kind of see. But in December of 2021, the board approved code updates for the town of Earthwood, which included any new lots being platted that don't have direct street frontage has to have an additional 0.2 spaces of off-street parking spaces outside of the garage and the driveway behind the garage to allow for visitor parking and overflow parking, delivery, stuff like that. And so they've met this by providing parking spaces within the trail corridor frontage areas in this location and this location, as well as partnering with the parking spaces along Nebraska, along this street and along the north-south street. The parking should be adequately resolved based off the code changes that we've passed since then. Recommendation number 4, the consideration of a roundabout along County Line Road, Highway 56. We've already discussed that. They provided that. And I think the applicant will speak to that a little bit more during their presentation. And then recommendation number 5, the zoning in the far southeast of County Line Road, be designated for light industrial. That was referring to this location down here, and that's not a part of this plat, so that is not applicable for this situation. Then at the Planning Commission hearing on July 28th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the approval of this project with the following conditions. Number 1, this kind of verbatim for what the staff's recommending, but that the access easement be created on the alley and trail tracks to allow for legal use by the residents. Number 2, that the northeast corner of track B shall be separated out for future development. That would be this area right here, as you can kind of see on the, stick around a little bit, on the landscape plan. This is kind of just depicted as natural grass area, whereas on the neighbor master plan, they had some multifamily units in there. And so staff's worked with the applicant in the last week and a half since that meeting to, I think the applicant will again touch more on it, but to provide more townhouses in that area that are alley loaded to utilize the space a little better and to create it for a more attractive streetscape. Planning Commission condition number 3, that the roundabout be constructed at the intersection of Highway 56 County Line Road. Condition number 4, that an access easement or right-of-way roadway shall be dedicated to allow access from Highway 56 to Tenderfoot, between Block 14 and Track A. That would just kind of be in this area. So within the neighbor master plan of the traffic study, an access point with a right turn lane needed to be installed from Highway 56 to alleviate the congestion on County Line Road. That was provided with their preliminary plat submittal, but we've worked with the applicant and that should be no problem to accomplish. Then the Planning Commission also made the following 2 recommendations. The first one be that the applicant and staff work to design Block 8 such that it complies with the current design requirements by a final plat. So Block 8 is this little kind of L-shaped section right here in the middle of the project. As you can see here, these are all smaller lot size front-loaded products, whereas on the neighbor master plan, they were depicted as alley-loaded, small lot, rear-loaded products. So we've, since as staff have touched base with the applicant, had discussions about this product. Staff would probably recommend making, just based off the neighbor master plan, keeping these lots as alley-loaded. However, if you had a desire to make them front-loaded or preferred to see them front-loaded, staff would recommend making that a 40-foot wide lot, as our block diversity standards requires that garage door frontages be less than 50% of the lot facing coverage, and anything less than 45-foot lots would really only allow a one-car garage if it was built to standards to be able to fit the 2 cars. So while it's possible, I think staff would recommend going with either alley loaded or the large traditional lots, but of course, and I think the applicant will touch on their reasoning for requesting the smaller lots as well. That decision is ultimately up to you. The second and final recommendation the Planning Commission gave was that the applicant and staff work to determine specific irrigation strategies for grasses, native or otherwise, in the trail corridors. So that kind of came about from the staff's perspective of with a bunch of new developments that have natural grass in their open space areas. We've seen a lot of complaints about, especially when they're right up against the fence lines or right up against property lines, that either one, if they're on the side of the corner lot, that they don't kind of blend well with the irrigated turf or natural, whatever the homeowner likes to do. And aesthetically, we get complaints from residents and property owners within those areas. There's been complaints about grass, the natural grass sweeping under and catching under the fence and kind of spreading and taking over people's yards, which they aren't a fan of. And then also number 3, the fact that we get a lot of complaints about the maintenance of these grass areas. And of course, not saying that this happens everywhere, but there are some instances where they're a little bit tougher to maintain. Grass gets a little longer, and especially when you get them up against the fence lines, they're not as easy to mow. So staff and the applicant have worked together, and I think we're pretty much on the same page, and it's really just on the general areas along the backs and sides of the houses and stuff within the open space areas and parks that aren't already depicted as being irrigated turf, but not necessarily having to make them irrigated turf, but some sort of rock mulch, crusher fines, wood chips, something else to just kind of give them a little buffer room to kind of separate the area that is intended to be residential backyards / front yards, side yards, and the open space areas. So with that, staff recommends approval of the Farmstead second filing preliminary plat, finding that it satisfies section 30-6-107C with the following 7 conditions. Number 1, an access easement must be created on all of the alley and trail tracks to allow for legal use by the residents and the public. Number 2, all lots in block 8 south of tract R shall be rear-loaded from an alley as per the approved neighborhood master plan. Number 3, the northeast corner of tract B shall be separated out for future development. Number 4, all the trail corridors shall be irrigated and shall not be made up of non-irrigated native grasses. Number 5, a roundabout shall be constructed at the intersection of Highway 56 and County Line Road. Number 6, right-of-way shall be dedicated at the intersection of Nebraska and County Line Road to allow for a roundabout to be built when the eastern portion of the subdivision is constructed. And finally, number 7, an access easement or right-of-way roadway shall be dedicated to allow for access from Highway 56 to Tenderfoot Drive between Block 14 and Tract 30. With that, I thank you, and I'll be available to answer any questions you may have after the applicant presents their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ollinger.
Trustees, Steve Shorter, 100 Greenfield Court, Colorado. Shorter Resources representing postmodern development out of Fort Collins, which is the developer of the property. Also tonight we have TV group planners with us, Northern Engineers, civil engineers, and Matt Bellish, traffic engineer. Everybody knows where this property is, the southwest corner of County Line Road and Highway 56. Adam did a very good job presenting that. Just to dig into the product mix that we have here tonight, we have a total of 297 units. It differs a little bit from what staff presented earlier due to the 30 additional townhomes that we'll talk about a little bit later. We have 37 60-foot wide front-loaded lots, which are these dark yellow lots in this position. We have 70 50 front-loaded lots, which are the light yellow color positioned in the center of the project here. in this edge over this area. We have 88 40-foot wide front-loaded, alley-load lots, which are positioned on the east side here and in this area, and also 18 along the Blue Harvest project. We have 39 35-foot lots front-loaded, which are the center block 8 that we'll talk about a little bit later. And we have 60 attached townhome units, which are positioned in this spot, and over here south of the future apartments. Also in this you see, which aren't part of this actually submittal, but the future apartments here and a future commercial in this area to be consistent with the neighborhood master plan. Like Adam mentioned, one of the conditions is the roadway that connects these two in this position, north and south to 56. And that was always going to be our intent. We just didn't do it because we thought we'd take care of it later. We had no problem with it now. Whether that shifts a little bit east or west whenever that project comes in will remain to be seen. If we look and zoom in at the park a little bit, you can see we have an expansive playground structure. We'll talk about that a little bit more. You can see the pool structure, pool, clubhouse, associated parking if you were come to the park or to the pool area. These are the 30 additional townhome units that we'll talk about in a little bit. Detention. This detention is regional for the commercial, apartments, and all of this park area in this spot right here, as well as it goes south to another regional detention before it discharges into the stream. In here we also have looping sidewalks, some concrete, some crusher fines, looping throughout the area with irrigated turf fields. This was shown in Adam's presentation as the irrigation pond for raw water system. That got moved south off of essentially in this Fountain south. I can show you if I zoom up. It got moved to this area down here. That's some land that we own, and it came with the property. The raw water ponds tend to draw up and draw down as they fill and as they're used. And it kind of is ugly sometimes and muddy. We thought it'd be better just to have an irrigated play field in the park rather than an unsightly pond that could be brown or could be muddy and things like that to cause problems. So that got moved to the south. So keep going here. So this is our first concept of the pool rendering for the pool building and facility. As you pull up to the building, our concept is you arrive at the parking lot and enter the building. An aerial bird's eye view. It must be cold. There's only one person in the pool. This is the rear view looking at the pool structure. Also with this project, we're proud to bring along the Berthoud Adaptive Park project, support the bowling family in an effort to build Berthoud's first public inclusive playground intended to be a premier destination for children and parents with a wide range of disabilities, ultimately bringing accessibility inclusive closer to home for many of the mid-northern Colorado area. This is just a fantastic project, and I know I met with the mayor a while back on this project just to go through, and such good work that they're doing raising money and trying to get this thing done. It's just, every time I meet with them, I'm amazed of how beautiful this park is. So we're proud to partner alongside of these guys. And if you haven't, this is not an unshameless plug, but please look them up and see if you can donate to these guys. You see on their website, they're trying to raise $1 million. They're about halfway there. And those little kids there at their lemonade, they raised $11,000 in one day. That's beyond impressive. So if you can support those guys, please do. As Adam mentioned, there were 7 conditions of approval that came along to Planning Commission. Let's dig into those a little bit more. Number 1, as he mentioned, an access easement must be created on all alley tracks. That's low-hanging fruit. That's easy. That's just a text there, text to change for us. That's already done. The northeast corner of track B shall be separated out for future development. We agree with that. We'll show you a little bit more on that coming up. A roundabout shall be constructed at the intersection of Highway 56 and County Line Road. We agree with that condition. An access easement or right-of-way roadway shall be dedicated to allow access from Highway 56 to Tenderfoot Drive. That's the one I just mentioned that splits the commercial and the future apartments. We agree with that as well. Then also the recommendations, the applicant staff to work on Block 8 so that it complies with current architectural design requirements by final plat. That was the issue with the alley in Block 8. We'll dig into that a little bit more here. The applicant and staff work to determine specific irrigation strategies for those native areas. We'll show you an exhibit of where those would occur. Further study be pursued at the intersection of County Line Road and Nebraska Avenue, and we agree with that comment as well. So if we look at Block 8, it's really the outlined red area that Adam already presented to you. When we look at, while we took out the alley, if you see the first red line going east-west, that is that trail corridor that connects really Farmstead, Fowling 1, Berthoud, proper town, Old Town, clear over to our park and to go east from this point. If you cross one road, you cross another road, there would be another alley crossing, and those alley crossings are quite narrow. And what we saw it as being an unsafe liability trail crossing. If some kid is riding his bike or somebody's coming down the trail corridor and someone goes across a narrow alley, the sight visibility and distances aren't real good. So we didn't like that. And also the alley entrances that comes out to this side was not aligned with the street across the street. The housing product is really narrow, and it was developed for really one home builder. We don't have that home builder in our queue for in our subdivision, so that's one other reason we'd like to remove the alley. We'd like to do a different product. And I think we got to this point because it was a 10% change in the whole overall unit mix. If you look to the right-hand side, we did add the alley up here with the Harvest Project. We picked up 18 lots. What that does is remove the front load on this busy street that goes over out to County Road 1 in front of the commercial and the apartments. If you take the 43 lots that are in here with the alley, subtracted by the 18 that we added, it's a 25 lot difference. That's only 9.5% difference over the whole overall unit count for the whole project. And then we also have the no crossing of the alley over the narrow stretch of the park trail. And we also got rid of the alley that comes out to this side. So with that said, Planning Commission, they did recommend that staff and us work on Block 8, that it complies with the current architectural standards. We are working, as Adam mentioned, we are working with those guys. We just didn't have time to sit down with those guys before this meeting. We understand the town's desire, their key standards, the facade monotonous requirements, the 2.5 foot staggering requirements, the recessed front-loaded garages at least by 2 feet, the garage not take up more than 50% of the front facade. We're planning a single-car garage with a 9-foot door and 25-foot wide hose. That's only 36%, not 50. Then also number 5, provide at least 2-foot paved off-street parking spaces. We plan to accomplish this with a 1-car garage and 1 or 2 parking spots in each driveway. Also number 6, provide a driveway not less than 20 feet from the back of the sidewalk or the property line. So we're willing to work with staff, and I think we'll get there. And like Adam said, either we make this work or it goes to something larger, maybe 38 feet, maybe 40 feet. But at the end of it, we would like to remove the alley if we could. Staff comment number 3, the northwest corner of Track B be separated out for future development. We were planning on doing something there, we just didn't quite get into the drawings when we submitted. So we worked with staff in the permitted zoning and added 30 townhomes there, all with additional alley loaded products. So that's inside that red dot right area right here. You can see it. That's why we've shown that a couple times. Staff comment number 4, all trail corridors shall be irrigated and shall not be made up of non-irrigated native grasses. Planning Commission, we didn't push back on this. We just asked for clarification when it said all trail corridors. We didn't want to end up doing bluegrass throughout the whole project. So we worked with staff and identified these additional areas. These are areas that most of them probably would have been irrigated, but there's a few that wouldn't. So we agree with staff and we'll work to add those to our irrigated plan and for, like Adam said, the mulch to be along the back of the lots. In fact, we were mowing weeds out there this week along the back of some of the lots, so we understand. Staff comment number 5, a roundabout shall be constructed at 56, and number 6, right-of-way reserved at the intersection of Nebraska and County Line Road to allow for a roundabout to be built when the eastern portion of the subdivision is constructed. We had a lot of discussion with Planning Commission about this, and a lot of those major regional improvements, how's it going to be funded, who's going to build it, who's going to design it, the right-of-way acquisition on the north side of 56 that we need, the lot impacts at Nebraska that impacts the lots that we have with just a 4-way stop sign on both sides of the road. The phasing is difficult with the roundabout, and the signals and stop sign that we designed do meet the 2045 standards for traffic impact. And Adam presented another slide similar to this, but this is kind of that yellow line that you see is kind of the right-of-way that as we see it positioned out there as it is today. We are already starting to design this roundabout. We're going to pull it south a little bit to try to limit that as much as we can so that we don't need to get as much right-of-way as we intended, especially with the cemetery and the private landowner on the east side. Adam had this slide up as well. And some of the items we discussed with Planning Commission as well, the roundabouts are really double the cost of a signal. They take up more land area. There's more maintenance with landscaping. They're hard to construct in phases. But they do function at the 2045 projections. And that's what trustees, you guys had asked us to look at, was to see if a roundabout does function in that area. So they do function at the 2045 standards. The signals, are more cost effective. They use less land. The right of way as it is out there today does take care of the signal. the future 2045 signal. There's more maintenance and utilities with signals and equipment, and they can be constructed in phases, which is nice. But it also functions at the 2045 projections. The Nebraska Roundabout, you can see on the left side here, does impact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our lots. So we'll lose 5 lots, but if we do decide to do that, which we are, you know, we look at this one is actually quadruple, if not more, the cost of the 4-way stop sign. It takes up a lot more land area, like I just mentioned, the maintenance, the phases, and all that other stuff as well. On the image to the right is the 4-way stop sign. You can see how small it is. But we talked to Planning Commission staff, and we said, even if this is a condition of approval, we requested that the town participate in the regional share of the cost of the roundabout. Per our TIS, Farmstead filing 1 and 2 consists about 17% of the Highway 56 roundabout. That's round numbers as we're just looking through TIS. Farmstead filing 1, 2, 3, and all of the others on the east side of the road might consist of about 43%. Planning Commission, the Highway 56 roundabout was a condition. In Nebraska, they asked for further study because we were saying, hey, can we do something different? But we worked with staff this week. We met with the town manager, and agreed to partner to construct both of these roundabouts. As I mentioned, we're full speed ahead on the design of these, and I believe if Chris already hasn't reached out to CDOT, we'll be doing that shortly to get these things going. So we agree to partner with the town. The town agreed to pay its fair share, so we're ready to go, and we'll get these things going. And we see it as a benefit for the whole town. As you guys mentioned, you pull up there in the evening, can't make a left out. If the roundabout is there in 56, you'll be able to pull up and get out of there. So we see it as a win-win for everyone. Public neighborhood comments. Robin Snyder, she was supportive filing 2, but she'd like to see a pool and park. Obviously, we just mentioned the pool and park are coming in this next filing. Mike Cook, Birth and Habitat Project Coordination. We did coordinate via the alley access that we spoke about earlier with the Habitat Project. Stephen Bashong, attorney, requested adherence to the Bacon Reservoir Agreement. We retained the drainage patterns and discharge points. We honored all those historic patterns. Scott Owen, the same thing with the Newell Lake District. We honored those patterns. Douglas Pennock, the president of the McIntyre District, there's an open ditch along County Line Road as a discharge. That will remain open ditch or be piped. That'll be taken care of in the next filing. The Newell Farm Amphitheater, they had a bunch of comments, but those are all in filing 2, filing 3, not a part of this project, because it's east of County Road 1. Amber Kaufman with Little Thompson Water District. She has concerns about traffic patterns, sanitary sewer, multifamily, and screening associated with the multifamily if it came. We're moving 7th Street to the east. That'll be the one that splits the commercial and the retail. The commercial retail and our apartments. We see that as a better way to get people in and out of the project, especially as those will be more higher impact traffic demands. Staff comment, even an access easement or right of way be dedicated to show access from Highway 56 to Tenderfoot Drive. That's one of their comments, so we did honor that. We hope that this will be more desirable to our retail center, and we're already in really good discussions with commercial users and receiving great feedback. We thought this would be something that would lag the project, but it looks like the commercial might move up a little bit. We're pretty excited about that. There's also this road moving between our commercial and apartments discourages a cut-through traffic to avoid the intersection at 56 and County Road 1. And then if we are going to do apartments, we will meet the town standards when that apartment project is submitted, and you guys will see that as well. Sanitary sewer, they're worried about extensions. Sanitary sewer will be extended deep into the apartment area and will easily be within reach to those guys at Little Thompson if they so choose to connect to it. And then one last plug for the adaptive park. Please go into there, and thank you guys very much. I'll end on the slide if there's any questions.
Thank you. All right, we can just go right to left. Trustee Butler, do you have any questions?
I do. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you.
I think that was one of the better ones I've seen in a while. So I appreciate that.
Adam was pretty good too.
You went quick, so I'm trying to catch up and process. I guess my bigger questions are around the Block 8 alley versus front. And if this is appropriate, Mayor, to staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
it sounded like staff's recommendation was, Mr. Erlinger, this is better to administrator or to you, but to retain that alleyway. But obviously the applicant is, it sounded like requesting to avoid the alleyway for several reasons. Can you elaborate, I guess, staff with, I understand the code compliance with, 50% garages. Applicant made a comment that would still be achievable with the 35-foot front loaded. So I guess I had more comment with that. Why push, or why are you recommending the alleys versus the front if they can still meet the guidelines?
I think we're just recommending the alleyways because that's what the neighborhood master plan showed. This is to try to stay as much in line with the neighborhood master plan as possible would be the goal with that. Like the applicant said, the 35-foot product would be able to meet it. However, they would only be one-car garages with the second parking space being the street or the driveway behind the garage, or I guess between the garage and the street, because all single family or all units need at least 2 off-street parking spaces per unit inverted. So typically that's met with either a 2-car garage or a garage and a parking pad. But since these products would not be wide enough to have a 2-car garage, which are typically about 20 to 22 feet in width, they're proposing a product which would have to meet all of our block diversity, our architecture guidelines, and anything else that would only be 35.
Right.
And I think practically speaking too, I think this is kind of a qualitative decision. We talked about this a lot at the staff level. I think Adam's point is a good one, which is the neighborhood master plan. Anytime there's a neighborhood master plan approved, our position as staff, irrespective of this project or this developer, this is not about them, is generally if there's going to be a change from the approved neighborhood master plan, there should be a real justification for that, and it's typically not just convenience. In this case, I understand their point. I think there are some other market solutions that are alley load, but I don't know that we feel really strongly about it one way or the other. I think it's kind of a qualitative decision that's up to you. What they're proposing will work. They'll certainly still have to meet all of our architecture requirements. And it will create some product diversity, which is part of the other reason why we want to see alley loaded product in the right circumstances, because it's creating diversity of product types to avoid monotonous neighborhoods. But a 35-foot lot here will be unique and it'll require unique architecture, and I think that'll still serve that purpose. So again, I don't know that we feel really strongly about it one way or the other. Our recommendation is always to default to sticking to the neighborhood master plan as approved. But if you guys feel differently and you feel like it's reasonable to meet the developer's request, we wouldn't be opposed to that either.
What are your thoughts about safety? Because I think the applicant was, making the argument of and I do see a possible risk there if kids are blowing through on their bicycles down that trail corridor and they cross this alley, which is narrower, and depending on the type of home built, if it's detached garages in limited site corridors, or view.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I talked about with Mr. Shorter. We actually don't disagree on that. I'd prefer not to have the trail crossing the alley. And I think there's some alternative alley arrangements that we also talked about, kind of sketched out, that could work and still maintain an alley load product for the majority of that block. Probably not the entire thing either way. And if we're not going to do the entire thing either, then maybe it doesn't make sense anyway. The other reason why we like to avoid alley load is that you don't have a bunch of driveways as your street frontage, right? With single car garages and single lane driveways, that's less of a visual impact. It still has the same kind of street impact in terms of cars backing out into the street. It changes the nature of that block and that street. But again, I think that's a qualitative decision more than it is a kind of quantitative or code decision at this point.
Trustee Westler, just to clarify, I don't think I touched on this in my report, which I apologize for, but the staff recommendation number 2 mentions that block 8 south of tract R be alley loaded. Tract R is that trail corridor that runs east-west through there. So staff's recommendation is to only keep that alley south of the trail so that there would be no trail crossing. I apologize for that.
Gotcha, okay. That makes more sense.
In terms of the building, it makes a lot of sense for us if we have a whole block to kind of keep that block consistent with the product that we're trying to do. As I mentioned before, this was created for a specific builder that we don't have in here. So regardless of what we do, it'll come back something different than what is shown on the neighborhood master plan. We're just hoping that we can get rid of the alley because we don't have that product. And then keep in mind too, we did add 18 additional alley load up here and 30 additional townhomes with alley access as well. So it's not as if we're anti-alley, we just like to not have the alley here in this stretch if we can help it.
Okay, I appreciate that. I do agree with town administrator, it's gonna make that block cluttered. It's gonna be a parking headache and nightmare, just in my opinion, when you have single car garages and driveways, people are gonna be parking on the street, playing merry-go-round with cars, parking, so it's a personal comment. I think the curb appeal is improved with the alley loaded. And then referring to, you touched on the 30 additional townhomes added in the park. I don't have the track number in front of me. Is that part of our packet tonight? I guess staff can.
Yes, that is. We took the number for the total lots from our first submittal before those 30 townhomes were included in the multifamily section just to the southwest of the apartments over there. They are part of the preliminary plat request. We just picked the wrong number, so that was just a miscalculation with the second one. But that is in the packet within the preliminary plat sections and the landscape plan sections of the packet.
And staff is okay with that?
Yes, yeah. That area on the master plan was identified as just kind of general multifamily. There was some like apartment kind of condo buildings, some townhome buildings. So within that general area, we felt like it met the neighborhood master plan intent.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Trustee Hardy?
Now, I on to his comment was, I view the alley load as a way to take that traffic off the main roads. So that's why I'm in favor of the alley load. So I'd probably go with staff on that one. That was just gonna be kind of a sarcastic comment about the park. No pickleball? Sorry.
I had that written down too.
There's actually a discussion point.
Okay,
So
we're just looking at townhomes and apartments. Seems like that kind of age group would be buying those products. So pickleball
stay tuned. We had a discussion today. Actually, so.
or tennis courts that can convert to pickleball, dual court. And then my other question was on the roundabouts. Would it be more cost effective to have a contractor build both roundabouts at the same time rather than separately?
We would build them both at the same time as we're developing the project.
Okay, because I kept hearing that the second roundabout on Nebraska would be built until the east phase came
It
up.
would not need to be. As staff's comment is, they would allow us to do the four-way stop sign if and until we decided to do the east side.
Okay.
When we come in here with the first phase and we design all this, the full engineering drawings for that roundabout will need to be finished so we can design and build our subdivision and street connections.
Okay.
Whether it's a four-way stop or if it's a roundabout, like you said, your right-of-way will be dedicated. We will do an internal analysis and work with Chris and town administrator and try to figure out if it needs to come in now. What's the best scenario for the town and us as we build this? Because it's going to be a partnership.
It just makes better sense to do all the road improvements on County Lane Road there and both roundabouts
Absolutely.
now, rather than when you've got this entire neighborhood built and they're going to need that road. And then that'll help take off some of the burden when you're actually doing the east side. So I'd rather see County Line Road, both roundabouts, built at the same time as all this is being done, so it's everything from County Line Road west is done when it's done.
It might, I don't think that'd be a problem. I think between us and the town, as we partner with this, it might be good to give us some flexibility on the Nebraska roundabout, just in case the funds aren't there either from us or from the town or from CLR approval, who knows what it could be, but if we had that flexibility, knowing that in the future a roundabout will be there when it's needed, it'd be nice to just have that flexibility.
Because that would be county, wouldn't it? That wouldn't be CDOT.
That's county, but the CDOT is on 56.
Okay. Is there another option for the 35-foot wide lots that I'm assuming you have a product there, you kind of like touched on it, you just said the product disappeared. Have you thought about making that a less dense area that's not alley loaded like the other parts? Because that would be my compromise. If we're going to take the alleys away, then I'd say let's look at a less dense product to help alleviate the amount of traffic that's going to be accessing those homes on those two streets.
Yes, if we remove the alley, we could come up with probably a little bit larger lot or something else in that area if we could get rid of the alley. But if you guys are, if you guys are going to put a condition up for the alley, then it'll probably go back to something a little bit larger than what was there. Because we don't have something in there, that's for really one.
Because that's where I'm getting at, with the higher density, the alley kind of alleviates some of that traffic congestion. If you eliminate the alley, then I'd like to see a larger product or a less dense product put in there.
I mean, we could probably do something in the 40-foot range, and it would be fine.
Those are my questions and comments.
All right, thank you. And again, if we could just keep it to questions, we can't really
Yeah, no.
have an opinion until after we hear public comment. Trustee Ayers.
Yeah, I think you guys said that there was a possible alternate route for the trail corridor that goes from the current development through that block 8, is that correct? Because of the concern of crossing the alleyways, et cetera, or is that just pretty solid, that
That's pretty
that
solid,
trail is
yeah.
gonna go straight across into the park?
Yeah, it also carries the raw water irrigation line coming from the west to east. That's kind of the reason for that trail to be in that position.
Okay.
So it'd be almost impossible to move it.
Okay. And then my next question is, it says in the open space and parks section of the handout, by the time the final plat, staff will work with the developer to ensure that high visibility open space areas like land around the detention pond and the areas at the terminus of the dead end alleys will be better screened with more landscaping than is currently depicted. Could you be a little bit more specific on why you're screening the open space and what that would look like?
Yeah, that was more in regards to before they agreed to put in the townhomes in that southwest corner of the Tenderfoot and Highway 56 areas.
Okay.
Area. As well as, the parking spaces along the trails and stuff like that. That's more just it usually gets worked out just during staff comments and stuff like that, just a couple shrubs or bushes, something small, just to make it so it's not just going straight from pavement to,
Okay, so nothing
grass.
like, nothing significant like a
nothing
berm or
for
something like
hiding
that?
the open space or anything.
Okay.
It's more just to keep the things that don't really fit in the open space, like, the detention pond or something like that, or the parking spaces from just being a little bit more visually attractive.
Okay. My other question was, you guys have moved the pond from the northern section down to the south. And I understand that this is just an idea, but are you gonna is the pond in the south going to be, this might be a stupid question, but are you going to have enough water? Because it seems like it's a much smaller pond than before.
The pond that we depicted before was just an illustrative pond. It wasn't sized.
Okay.
We're actually working with the irrigation consultant right now to size this pond. And this pond will easily take care of the west half of County Road 1. Whether or not it takes care of the east side for the next following number 3 will remain to be seen. We might have another pond over there.
Okay, and is the pond going to be still accessible? Because I think you said you had concerns about it raising and lowering levels, et cetera, et cetera. Is it still going to be accessible open space / park space, or is it going to be kind of closed off as a just detention pond?
My guess is it's going to be a little bit more closed off than people would like it to be, just because of its steep bank and going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It's this raw water storage vessel. It's not really a pond you go look at and go fishing in, if you will. There's going to be a lot of water coming into it and a lot of water going out of it. And if you see the other ones in other communities and in this town, they could draw down 6 feet in a couple of days if it's really hot outside. We just don't want the liability of that being right next to the adaptive park and inside the area where all these kids are running around. And it's just, it could be a liability.
Okay, and that was honestly my concern, because now it is kind of by the wayside. I would like to see, signage or some sort of barrier or something like that to keep people out of it if that is the concern from a safety standpoint, because it seems like if it's in the more residential area, there's going to be more people around to kind of make sure no danger is happening to people walking by or pets or whatever. But if it's kind of down by those county properties, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I just want to make sure that the safety concerns are being taken care of.
Duly noted, and at the final design, we'll make sure that we take care of that if it's going to be an issue.
Okay, that's all I had for questions.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So I guess to start off by looking at the original presentation that was put up first, and then this one, I guess I'm just having some disjointed questions and things that were said over here but are different over here, and I think you touched on that as well. One of them was that pond was an irrigation pond. It was up in the middle of the park area at first, and now it's moved south. But it is an irrigation pond, meaning the parks and the areas in this area are going to be irrigated with this water specifically.
That's raw water.
Okay, so you are going to have an irrigation system for this pond for the year.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Love to hear that. So the traffic studies, I know we've kind of talked about the roundabouts ad nauseum so I'm just gonna keep doing it anyways. So roundabouts, big fan of. Yes, they're uncomfortable, but I think it's the only way to keep moving things forward. Two questions I have on that. One, cemetery land, is that going to be impacting anything that is going to cause a lot more problems in terms of land that the town owns, I should say? So in terms of the northwest corner of that, is there anything that is going to be extra hard to do?
Are you asking if there's any grave sites?
Yes.
There's any grave sites. The applicant's been moving the roundabout further south, so it's not right in the middle of the intersection to try to alleviate that.
Okay.
I think his slide earlier touched on it, that there'd be minimal impact staking, kind of just the corner basically clipped off of the cemetery.
Okay. I just didn't want to poltergeist situation and could never be too sure. With both of these roundabouts, I know it's kind of just a blank whatever in the middle. Are there any plans or any designs essentially to decorate the inside or do anything with the inside of them? Because on I-25, we're going to be having decorations put in on the middle. The roundabout on the way into town has a whole bunch of decorations. Is that something that is being considered?
Art, Mike, art.
You know, as a part of, town code.
Yes.
Really, a roundabout isn't even part of town code.
Sure.
The four-way stop sign, signalized intersection is code. The roundabout is like, okay, we wish to do this thing. If the town wishes to put a sculpture of Mayor Carspector in the middle of it, I mean, we're.
Yeah, right. No, they'll never be doing that.
So it's up to you guys on what you want to do. I mean, we're going to work together. Like I said, it's a partnership. This is going to be back and forth with these guys. How much are we landscaping? Because this raises the budget to this. How much are we doing here, and what are we doing with if there's push button signalized crosswalks at the round? But there are all these things that we'll have to work through. So that's for up to you guys to decide, really.
Okay.
Build it.
Okay. Cool. Off the top of your head, either of you, I didn't really see any notes on street width. Is there any of that? I didn't see any of that in the packet. Is that currently standard?
Yeah,
pretty much across?
Lucas standard, just like every other street
Okay.
in town.
Same with tree lawn size. That's
Tree
all
lawns,
standard.
7-feet tree lawns, 5-foot sidewalks, all the trails 8 feet or 6 to 8 feet.
Okay.
The 10-foot one would be continued along to match the Farmstead one all the way to the park.
Okay.
1 through 54.
We have some crusher fines and some concrete in areas. So.
Okay. Next one I've got in the southernmost section, southwest, that little corner. When you kind of look at the lot alignments, it's literally like a triangle that got bitten out of it.
Right here?
Just more to the left. It's just outside the development. Yeah, so you have Farmstead 1 is just to the left of that. Farmstead 2 is right there, but there's a little, looks like the home plate sized piece of parcel of land. It indicates that there's going to be parks there, there's trails there, but there's nothing currently on it. Could you guys explain what that is?
That's a part of Farmstead 1. There's supposed to be a park there. So we're in the process of getting the developer for the original Farmstead phase 1 to put that in. That's a part of their project, so we wouldn't accept any of their infrastructure, their streets until that was completely put in.
Okay.
We would connect to it.
Yeah.
Sure. So Tenderfoot, so I guess that's the northernmost east-west connection that kind of goes up by behind the apartments and the commercial. Are there going to be any roads going north from there between apartments and commercial?
Yeah, that was one of the recommendations or conditions of approval. Number 7 was to have, whether it be full right-of-way or an access easement that is full right-of-way width, that connects up to Highway 56 as per the traffic study necessitates.
Okay. I'm asking because I know that I believe the ditch goes in that general area.
It's being rerouted. It will go this way and south.
Oh, okay. Yeah, comment on the bocce ball versus pickleball. That was another one I had written down.
If we could, we could really keep the questions.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I had.
Awesome. Well, by addressing all the citizens, I appreciate it. They were going to be my questions to see if you could address this. Sidewalks, I'm guessing all the way around down County Line Road too. Okay, and that'll go all the way to the detention area as well.
Yes, throughout the entire property.
How far is it from the detention area to the Little Thompson? Do you know roughly?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You're so close. Okay.
Are you talking about the irrigation pond?
I'm sorry, the irrigation pond. Yeah.
The irrigation pond is immediately adjacent to the Little Thompson River.
Okay. In the detention pond, you were saying usable? Is that the requirement there?
Well, if whenever we do the final construction drawings, if it can be usable, we'll make it usable, but like I said, we'll have to see what those drawings turn out look like. If the banks are real steep, it's drawing down 6 feet, we can't have kids along the mud and slide in if it's a 15-foot deep pond, if you will. It's literally a raw water irrigation pond.
I'm sorry, I'm getting the wording confused. I'm sorry, I keep thinking the wrong one. The one on the north end that you guys moved south.
Yeah, that's it. There'll just be one pond.
Okay, so what do you have in replacement? Or what did you have you replaced?
The grass field, the open grass, just the open grass field for people.
I see. Okay, thanks. You did bring that up. Okay, thanks. All right, that's it. Is there any additional questions, trustees?
I do have one that, since you brought that up about the southern pond being right down by the ditch. Because it just looks like a straight line across the bottom down there, even though the Little Thompson kind of wanders. Is it because the Little Thompson's outside your boundaries?
It's outside our boundary.
You literally have a square line there?
Our property boundary is square.
So the property to the south owns the land around on both sides of the, okay. All right. Just making sure.
Okay. Thank you. I'll open it up to public comment now. Open up the public portion of the hearing, I should say. If anyone wishes to speak to this, please come to the front, state your name and address, and we have 0 signed up. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak to this agenda item? Is anyone online, clerk?
Mayor, there is not.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board here for deliberation and a vote. How does everyone feel? We go person by person again. Start with trustee Ayers.
Yeah, I'm concerned about varying from the master plan with the alleys, especially since those are higher density lots. It does seem like we need to have the alleyways there. And I think if the trail is going to bisect the alleyway, just proper signage needs to be taken care of to make sure that no one is sort of going down people's backyards, et cetera, et cetera. But I am concerned with the smaller lots on the street like that without alley access. I mean, otherwise I like the park in the middle with the pool, and obviously I like bocce ball, but I think everybody else likes pickleball, so that's a necessity. I'm a little concerned about removing what was going to be sort of a walk-around lake in that central area. I understand the concern, especially if the water levels come up and down with making it a more piece of infrastructure as opposed to a piece of decoration. But if the residents were sort of informed that they were going to have a lake with a dock, et cetera, I think is what was presented a couple months ago to either port or planning, I can't remember. So I'm concerned about that, but I understand the utility of moving it off-site or to the edge of site. I appreciate the applicant working to get the roundabouts done, because I do think that those are much more useful than four-way stops in basically every way possible. It stops noise, it keeps flow going. So I mean, I'm for this design with the concerns that staff has brought up with the alleyway. So.
Okay, trustee Hardy?
Oh, my turn. I would basically repeat what Mr. Ayers just said. I don't like to deviate from the original plans too much as well, especially since you start at the beginning. I do know some things change, but I think that's why we put that 10% thing in there. Yeah, and again, just my comment earlier about the higher density versus alleys and lower density and no alleys. So it's kind of give or take. It's can't replace it with the same product and get rid of the alleys. We try and maintain the same product. So, but yeah, I'm not too concerned about the pond in the middle. I'd like to have maybe an alternative to all the grass. I think we need to start kind of worrying a little bit more about that sometimes with water. So if there's some interesting alternative to having an open grass thing there instead of a pond.
Okay. Trustee Butler.
I agree with the similar comments about the Block 8 alley. My opinion is either maintain with the master concept of having alleys or increase the lot size. And I would think, you know, a 40-foot lot minimum, ideally 45 to 50-foot lot. But I think to clarify that staff is recommending front-loaded on the north section to allow that trail corridor through, and then alleys on the southern section of that block A. And I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
And the northern block, I guess you could maintain 35-foot lots there, but I still would like to see a front-loaded lot wider in size.
Okay.
You know, minimum 40 foot. So that might be something we consider adding to that.
Like turn those 3 lots into 2 lots, so that they can do a 2-car garage.
Essentially. We might consider adding some verbiage to the recommendations of number 2, that the front-loaded lots on block 8 are larger in size. Otherwise, as it's proposed, it would be the same 35-foot front load.
The 6 north of
The
the alley, is that correct?
Correct. And that's really all I have to add and comment.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Then I was fully in agreement with everybody else, and then you had to go throw in a good idea. I guess we can leave that as an exception. I'm not opposed to that, because I think that kind of addresses everybody's concerns. I do like the alley load and track B, just because it kind of helps reduce traffic load on either street. Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with modifying that, so those top 6 lots could be changed to something wider, so they don't have to be alley loaded.
Okay.
So then north of that trail, those 6 lots could get changed to something wider if they wanted to do it, but they don't have to be alley loaded there. But everything else would need to be an alley load.
Anything else? You feel pretty good about it?
I know we're past the questions, so I can't ask more questions.
No, you can.
I can't.
Yeah.
Look at, so where the laser pointer is right now, that red dot, that next one over to the right, that brown circle, I don't know what that
That's
is.
detention.
That's the
That's the
detention.
detention pond, yes.
Okay. And then the,
Thank you for clarifying
yeah,
that. Okay.
the area further south as well, is that a detention pond as well, the southernmost section? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
This one here, this is
Yeah.
detention as well.
Detention / soccer field.
Yes.
And then the even further south, that's also a detention pond?
No, that's the
No.
irrigation wall. Where
Okay, so that's where guaranteed irrigation is coming from. Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
That's everything else I had.
All right. Trustee Butler, thank you very much. That was probably one of the better, or I'd say one of the best presentations I've seen, and thank you for answering all the residents' questions who've wrote in. I am in favor. I would really prefer keeping it the way it is with the alley loaded. There's just not too many opportunities to see this. So when I get it, I tend to not want to give it up. I would love to see that irrigation pond up there where the residents could kind of enjoy it. I understand the safety concerns, but I kind of think about Roberts Lake or the irrigation pond at Mary's Farm, and they're not necessarily fenced off. I think there's a little bit of parental supervision. But if that has to go, then I really like it, turf. I think that's a good alternative. Just gives a common area bigger than a pocket park where kids can actually play at. So I guess my big thing is I'd really like to keep the alley loaded the way it is. But if you guys are in preference of doing this adjustment, I'm not the end of the world to me. How do you feel, Trustee Harris?
So the minimum
Sorry,
6
in favor of
lots
the adjustment.
can either be, they can stay alley load, or they can get shifted to a 40-foot wide lot instead of the 35.
You just
So-
increase the density.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would be okay with that, but I think that I don't know if there would still be 6 lots up there. So if they
Right.
increase the size of the spread to make it so that they're front loaded, then I would like to see that extra space go to that cut through, so it's more of a greenway.
Yeah, I think that is staff's condition that they place upon us to do what you're saying. So I think that you're already good.
So that's what south of tract R is separate. The alley, the cross cut is separating tract R.
Yeah, so the alley would be south, the alley would be in this position here.
Mhm.
And then there would be no alley in this spot, but we would do something with those lots to meet the town standards like we're 40 foot wide.
And would that necessarily, I'm not sure of the exact space, I'm sorry to take up your time, Mayor.
You're not taking up my time.
So that would necessarily decrease that from 6 lots to probably 4 lots up there?
Yes, it could.
Well,
I can't tell you right
sure,
now.
Sure.
It may be something different than probably what's there.
Okay, well, I mean, if that's the case, I'm completely fine with that, but I would like any possible extra space to go to that cut through so that it becomes more of a sort of open track into the park. If the footage is gonna be increased on the lots, that somehow the math has to work out so that's the same amount of space, I would like that to go to some sort of walkable or bikeable path to cut in between those properties there,
Yeah.
but.
It is all right.
Well, that's what's there
That's what's there.
that's a trail corridor already, so
I
we're
know
just
that,
saying
yeah.
expanding that.
If they're gonna have to cut 6 lots down to probably 4, I would like as much as possible of that extra now non-lot space to go into travel space, I guess, for the residents.
The lots will get larger, so there might be 2 on each side, so the lots will get larger.
Well, if there's 35 foot wide lots, that's 105 feet for those 3 lots. So if you did 2 50-foot lots, that leaves 5 feet that I think he's asking to be put on that trail.
Understand.
Right.
Is everyone okay with that?
Is that,
All right. Yeah, other than that, I was only asking about the Little Thompson because it looks so close. We need to have parking down there for potential trailhead. But yeah, you don't own the space next to that, and I understand it also probably wasn't in the neighborhood master plan, so.
Oh, that brings up a question.
Go ahead.
What about parking down there for the soccer field in the park? And potential trail along the creek if we ever get open space down there?
I think it's more intended to just be a usable space. The soccer field is there to show you how large the space is. It's not essentially going to be a goalpost and things like that. It's going to be a usable area for people to go play.
And the idea behind the usable detention is that most of the time it is detention. When we have rainstorms like we did on Sunday night, it's going to be wet for multiple days as it drains in, everything.
So it's not gonna be your destination park?
It's not the destination
Unless you
park.
have to play mud soccer.
Pretty much,
Rugby.
that's what we
Mud
most of the
rugby.
time, yeah.
Alright. That wouldn't work too long because the ball has to bounce. There'd be a lot of.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're all in agreement with the amendment too. Trustee Butler or Trustee Ayers, do you want to go ahead and make that motion? Unless anyone else has anything else, sorry.
Does anyone need to specifically amend any of the 7 points based on our conversation, or are you guys okay with number 2 just saying tract R shall be reloaded? And let the planners kind of figure it out?
I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, track 2's only, the line 2's line 1 needs to be modified somehow to designate reviewing that tract again. So you just direct town staff to work with the developer?
To resize or redraw the tract R, or block 8 north of tract R?
That sounds right.
Or at least retract
That would be the map
lots
again.
north of the bike path?
To reevaluate the lots north of tract R in block 8.
Who's the best wordsmith?
Works.
I think,
Does that work on Intersect?
I mean, I think what is written here probably covers it, and I like, selfishly, I like that Trustee Ayers is suggesting some flexibility with the planners as we kind of work with them to reorient those lots. I think the discussion has been clear, and I think maintaining the lots south of tract R as alley loaded obviously implies that the lots north of tract R would then be front loaded.
Because of the
Front
requirements.
loaded, but also wider than 35 feet.
Yeah.
Which is necessary based on the code anyway, correct?
No.
No, so they
Okay.
could do 35-foot front-loaded lots there.
Okay.
And so if you're saying that in no condition would we accept that, I think there may be an opportunity to do a unique product. I haven't seen it yet, as Mr. Schroeder pointed out. We haven't seen those yet. And maybe those are a great product. We just haven't seen them, so we don't really know.
So the work with town staff to reconfigure the 6 lots north of Tract R.
I was just gonna say, I might recommend just taking what the planning commission recommended for the entire block 8, and just designating it for those northern 6 blocks, northern tracks. I think that is.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, so the planning commission recommendation, they recommended that staff work with the applicant to address, to find product type that meets the block diversity of all of block 8. If you just, instead of saying all of block 8, instead says the 6 lots north of Tract R, that could probably be suitable as well. If you desire to have that extra division there.
That's kind of what you were saying, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that could be an added, you could just add that as a number.
As a number 3.
I will just add that there's that few lots, we won't develop a separate product type for 4 lots or 5 lots. So it'll be something else that we have in there, and we won't have a 35-foot wide lot because we're not going to develop one house and sell 4 homes. Does that make sense? So we're going to need to work with these guys, the planners, for bringing something back that isn't 35-foot. So I don't know that you need to do this, but I think it's the comment that they have of doing block 8 and coming back with the alley load. I think we'll figure it out. Feel confident.
You guys agree with that? That's
Good, yeah, we are.
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah.
Okay, so no changes?
No change.
No changes,
All
okay.
right. All right, I will move to approve Farmstead's second filing preliminary plat, finding that it satisfies section 30-6-107C of the Berthoud Municipal Code with the following conditions. 1, an access easement must be created on all of the alley and trail tracks to allow for legal use by the residents and the public. 2, all lots in Block 8 south of Tract R shall be rear-loaded from an alley as per the approved neighborhood master plan. 3, the northeast corner of Tract B shall be separated out for future development. 4, all trail corridors shall be irrigated and shall not be made up of non-irrigated native grasses. 5, a roundabout shall be constructed at the intersection of Highway 56 and County Line Road. 6, right-of-way shall be dedicated at the intersection of Nebraska and County Line Road to allow for a roundabout to be built when the eastern portion of the subdivision is constructed. 7, an access easement of right-of-way roadway shall be dedicated to allow access from Highway 56 to Tenderfoot Drive between Block 14 and Tract A.
Excellent.
Second that.
Okay. Trustee Harris has moved, Mayor Pro Tem Grace seconded. Any final amendments?
Mayor Carspect, if I may, real quick, I think there may have been an error in the suggested motion. Number 4, all trail corridors shall be irrigated, not made up of non-irrigated grasses. I don't think that was the intention of staff, or from what I understand, the idea from the trustees tonight was not that all trail corridors need to be fully irrigated, but instead that they need to have portions. How do I say this?
An appropriate buffer between the
An
native
appropriate
grasses
buffer.
and the residential fence lines.
I'm really worried when we bring that up then about just putting rock in. I don't know what you guys were saying about just mulch, but it just sounds like a 2-year solution and then it turns into weeds. So I don't know.
We agree, and I think that's something we're gonna have to work out as part of the final plat and construction drawings, I think. What we don't want is unmanaged native turf adjacent to homes.
Right, that makes sense.
And I think there's a lot of solutions to that. We brainstormed a few internally. We'll have to work with the developer and they'll have to bring something back at the final plat stage and show how that will meet that requirement. I agree. Wood mulch, there's a high likelihood that will not look good in a couple of years.
Okay, well, it sounds like you got your head around it. Yeah, so.
But yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying.
Is that all right with everyone to kind of create that flexibility there?
So we're amending item 4 so that it is not a shall be irrigated. It's essentially, it opens it up for staff and the developer to figure out the best solution with irrigation and native grasses.
Just the best solution for some type of utility that looks good but doesn't. What was the wording you used?
So the planning commission recommended, their wordage was the applicant and staff work to determine specific irrigation strategies for grasses, native or otherwise, in the trail corridors. I
Okay.
think that's kind of what you guys are intending.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
So,
Does that work?
So we should remove our second, and
What?
do we need to remove our
Yeah,
second?
well, we just amended the
Motion.
Just amend the motion.
Okay, so we amend the motion, trustee Ayers, you all right with that?
Sure.
Okay, and Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah,
Okay, second
I
that.
approve the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Planner Olanger. Anything else, any other amendments? Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Harvey,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
Trustee Butler,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Karstad.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone in attendance too. Trustee Smith, we take a 5-minute break? Okay, take a 5-minute break. It is what, 8:50?
Yeah, it's gonna teach
I mean, because if they're gonna have to fix the lot spaces, it doesn't make sense to have like 60-foot lots there.
Right, yeah.
But we'll see.
We actually talked about, it may make sense to actually rotate the
I just think we,
So I think that was part of their concern too. They didn't want to deal with that from an HOA perspective.
See from Parks and Rec.
I mean, but it's used at your own risk, right? The HOA is not liable for ground. And if it's okay. I say 8:10, I forgot.
Yes, you said
That's laser.
All right, I call the meeting back to order, and we will go through our final agenda item tonight, and that is the Vantage 6 filing preliminary plat. This is also a public hearing, also introduced by planner Adam Olinger.
Hello again, trustees. This is a preliminary plat request for the Vantage 6 filing project. As you can see on the aerial view on your screens below, it is the land that is south of the ditch, running just south of County Road 10E. It's got a little portion of the property bordering County 10E. To the west is currently under construction. You probably see it when you drive north on Berkeley Parkway, of Vantage 2nd filing. And then to the south, a little bit earlier in the stages of construction, they've been moving dirt a lot out there, is Vantage 4th filing. To the east is the Berthoud Hollow property that is just being farmed right now. For zoning, this property was zoned R3 a couple years ago to allow for multifamily development within the project, which R3 also allows single-family, duplex, everything up to apartments, so it's a very wide range of housing types available. For the preferred land use map, it was designated as urban residential, kind of go along with that R3 zoning. However, due to the lack of availability of an access point onto County Road 10E because of how the streets across the way line up, as well as the unlikelihood of being able to get a vehicular crossing over that ditch corridor, staff does think it makes a lot of sense to keep this in kind of a suburban pattern. One, they already have the zoning for it. They've had the zoning for many years before this comprehensive plan was approved. And two, the most likely way this property would ever develop would just be as an extension, considering it's owned by the same people, and the existing street network approved and platted to the south would be an extension of Vantage 4 filing. So with that, the neighbor master plan, it was approved in February of 2022, so just about 6 months ago by the board, and was for basically all the rest of the infill lots within Vantage. So up here along County Road 10E, this property and the one on the other side of the ditch, as well as further south along Water Avenue. Since this project, Vantage 6, is only for this portion that is on the north side of the project but south of the ditch, that's all we're going to really pay attention to tonight. But as you can see here, It's kind of just an extension of the single-family detached product, same lot sizes, same housing sizes, just a little bit more room taken up, an additional 26 net lots being added. So with this, you can see here with the preliminary plat submittal, it is identical to the neighbor master plan. Same lot sizes, same amount of density, same street pattern, everything else. If I go to the next slide here, you can kind of see it curves around just off the screen here. They did have to make some changes to the lots that were already on the street. As you can see by this black line, this is where it used to curve. The approved portions of Vantage 4 filing. So technically 30 lots are a part of the submittal, but it would be a net 26 additional lots being approved. This is the landscape plan for the project. Again, like the previous one, doesn't quite line up perfectly, but I like it just because it gives a broad overview and lets you see the whole thing with a little more detail. As you can see, essentially it's just an extension of the existing roadway or the planned roadway, approved roadway going through the Vantage property. Street trees, tree lawns, sidewalks in front of all the houses, as well as tying into the trail corridors that are already existing within the Vantage development and expanding them further along, all the way up to 10E. So it's a little difficult to see because it's zoomed out, but County Road 10E is up here, excuse me. There is a proposed trail, concrete trail that would follow the ditch all the way around, along the ditch property, have a little connection into the potential subdivision through here, and eventually connect all the way down to over here where Vantage second filing currently has that ditch that's under construction and, pretty much put in at this point, I think. Connect directly in, same type of materials, both concrete sidewalks, same width, so it tie in seamlessly to that. This project would also incorporate a trail going due south behind these proposed houses and would connect with the trail at Vantage 4 filing. That trail would snake all the way down, and if I go back to the master plan, end up eventually making it to the big park in the center of Vantage. With that, I mean, it's pretty much identical to the master plan. There wasn't any changes being made. So at the master plan hearing, there was 2 recommendations of approval made by the Board of Trustees. The first one being to support there's 3 recommendations made. The first one was being to support soft surface trails. So staff and the applicant got together and looked at this project, and with the prevalence of concrete trails being already on both sides of the thing, and not really a new trail being made, just an extension of the 2 other ones, we kind of didn't really feel that it made a lot of sense to switch back and forth between surfaces and to kind of keep that uniformity in, and try to find spots for soft surface trails and other developments as they come along throughout the town. And that didn't really make a lot of sense for this specific location. Number 2, the trail by the bridge be extended to County Road 10E. That is planned here, so the trail would make its way all the way up to County Road 10E, where there would be a sidewalk along 10E. And hypothetically, you could go all the way from County Road 10E, cut through the Vantage development if you were walking or biking, and not have to go out to the stop sign at Bertha Parkway, make your way all the way down to the rec center or 7-Eleven or any of the other places on the south central or western parts of town. And then finally, recommendation number 3, to work with the ditch company to establish a trail crossing over the ditch. So the applicants updated staff throughout their process as they brought this through the planning process. They are well into discussions with the ditch company and expect to have an agreement in place by the time the duplexes across the ditch are ready to come in. Staff doesn't really think that it makes a lot of sense to have the ditch crossing be tied to this submittal specifically, as the ditch would cross to nowhere until those duplexes develop. So as long as the conversations are ongoing, the applicant's putting in good effort and making waves with the ditch company to get that crossing established, then it would make more sense to have that crossing established specifically when the duplexes came on board across the way. So with that, staff recommends approval of the Vantage 6 filing preliminary plat, finding that it satisfies section 30-6-107C with the following condition: that the applicant continues their ongoing discussions with the ditch company regarding the trail crossing. And also, one other thing before I leave as well, the Planning Commission did vote unanimously to approve this project with the same condition staff has recommended here, that they work, continue the discussions, but not necessarily tie the approval of this project or the final plat for this project to establishing that ditch crossing. So if you have any other questions, I will be available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here?
Yes.
They are online now.
Okay, thanks. We can see them on the TV, but not on our monitors. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. Let's crank up the volume real quick.
Okay. And then, do you guys have the presentation in front of you as well?
Nope, just two pictures, two different videos of you.
Ah! Okay, Adam, is that something you guys are pulling up?
I think we're trying to.
Okay, perfect.
Is she not sharing her screen
Can you share, Kristen, can you share your screen?
I can. Let me grab that really quickly. Sorry, we haven't done it that way in the past, so I just.
No, it's okay. Maybe planner only or.
It'll just take me a minute unless you guys beat me to it. All right. Okay. Would you like me to go ahead and share?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Is there any way Clark can get the volume up anymore?
It's on their end, it is not our end.
Ms. Turner, it might be on your end, the volume. It's very hard to hear. Just.
Okay. I am going to turn up my volume and I am also going to speak louder. So let me know if this gets a little bit better. Are you able to see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And can you hear me a little bit better?
Not very much.
Quieter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I might have got worse.
It's gotten worse?
Yeah, but you were fine in other presentations you had. I don't know. I'm not a tech guy, which is ironic, but you don't even have to. Or might be worth just.
I know we've never had this issue before.
Close the Zoom meeting. Maybe just a different audio input that you got selected that's like across the room or something like that.
I'm just thinking it might have gone our side, 'cause she was fine in the last couple presentations.
Go ahead and speak again.
Ms. Turner, can you try again?
Yes, can you guys hear me if I'm speaking level?
Yes, we're great now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I will keep projecting, but if I start to get quiet, please do let me know. All right, well, at least our technical difficulties only took a minute, so that's a good thing. My name is Kristen Turner, and I work with TV Group, and we've been working on the planning for the Vantage property for several years now. I think we're coming up on 4, 5, 6 years, somewhere in there. So we are excited to see these last few tracks at Vantage move forward. As Adam presented, there are 3 small tracks that are remaining, all with R3 zoning, and the track that we're talking about tonight is the smallest tract of the 3. So, this is located in the northeast section of the property, and it's sandwiched in between the ditch, which you can see right here, and also 4th Valley, which is directly south of it. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we got to this single-family detached. This has come up as a question before, and I think it's worth mentioning. So as you can see, this parcel it's pretty oddly shaped. I call this area here the hook. There will never be vehicular access to 10E from this property, from this parcel specifically, because of the intersection spacing requirements along 10E. It would end up with an intersection too close to existing intersections. So there'll never be a vehicular access here. We did a lot of testing here with different products to see what would make the most sense. And, as we try and extend product type into this area, can you guys see the hand as it moves across the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So as we try and extend product type up into this area, we start to hit the limits in which fire can serve the community. They have kind of a maximum distance that they will allow without having, a way to get out. So really that eliminates this portion of the property as being developable, with very much happening. We also, as we got into analysis, found that this is the location here that makes the most sense for detention and drainage to land, so we've maintained it as open space. So when you look at this parcel as a whole, we ended up with a much smaller section, and when we tested some multifamily type products in this area, it really felt like we were just trying to jam them into the area because it was, R3 zoning, and it just didn't feel right. When we went back and tested this with single family detached again, suddenly it felt like a natural extension of the existing neighborhood. It's just a handful of lots, as Adam mentioned, it very easily could extend this road up and create a loop around. And so it really felt like that was the natural product type that should land in this location. So that's kind of the why behind why we ended up with this single family detached product in this location. I did also want to share with you a couple of the key components that went into the overall community design when we were looking at Vantage as a whole and designing as a whole. The first component was pedestrian connectivity. And while we're looking at a zoomed in section here, the overall community has a really robust trail system. It was very important to us to provide both hard surface and soft surface trails, to provide a lot of different connections east to west and north to south to move people through this community effectively, but also so that they could enjoy the experience as they were moving through the neighborhood. The second component that was really important to the overall development was open space. And so again, when we zoom back out, and you guys recently saw the neighborhood master plan when we brought that through, but when we zoom back out, you'll notice that there's a lot of open space on this site, especially around the perimeters, and then we have dispersed pockets throughout the neighborhood so that we can help, open up views and create spaces for people to hang out and, just create these breaks in the blocks as we see them. So we think that this filing here really encompasses those two components really well. Obviously, there is a lot of open space. We did target right off the bat having that perimeter, have a really hefty perimeter of open space around this. A couple of key trails. So as part of the second filing, we have a trail component that runs from Berthoud Parkway along the ditch. And so we are picking that up right at the border to this property and extending it around the ditch and all the way up to 10E. So that is going to be one of those key pedestrian connections that we make that runs from east to west and a little bit to the north too with that connection to 10E. We also have a connection, and if you remember that neighborhood master plan when we brought it through a couple of months ago, this trail here runs all the way down this greenbelt spine to the neighborhood park area. That park area is moving forward. We're really excited about that. There's a pool and a clubhouse coming, all sorts of great park amenities. So this will create a strong connection again from the north down to the south, and then it continues to run south through the property all the way down to Bunyan. And then as you can see, we've got a couple of quick connections just from this portion of the neighborhood out to both of these trail systems to complete those connections. So this was really those were the two key components that we wanted to incorporate into this layout and the why behind why we are showing what we did. Adam did bring up the pedestrian connection as well, and we are continuing to have really good conversations with the ditch company. So we're feeling positive about that. Happy that they are open to discussing the possibility with us. We do believe that connection will be connected to this tract N parcel when this develops up here. We already know that we have sufficient space in a whole bunch of locations for that pedestrian connection to work on this tract right here. The key tract for us for that crossing is going to be that tract N and how it fits in with the road system, the emergency access, and the way the duplexes lay out. And that's why it'll be connected with that tract. That also gives us the time to continue having those conversations with them and figure out how we can make that work. So beyond that, this looks exactly like what you saw in the neighborhood master plan. There really haven't been any changes other than bringing in that civil engineering component. We do have the rest of our team online tonight as well, if you have any questions for us, and I will just wrap it up there and leave it to you guys to let me know what you have questions about.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Right. Trustee Ayers, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so how, I realize that the soft surface trail doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you said, because it doesn't really connect with anything, but how wide is the trail that's proposed? Is that a sidewalk or is that a quote-unquote trail?
Sure, I need to go back and look at the plans. We have matched the width of the trail that was proposed along the ditch. I don't remember off the top of my head what that is. Adam or Kurt might have that, but in general, the code requires that trails are at least 6 feet wide. Am I getting that right, Adam?
It will be 6 feet wide, yes.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So is there, and I'm not sure exactly, because you guys said, I guess in future projects, it might be worth considering more soft surface. But what about having, especially on the ditch section and the exterior sections that are not necessarily moving within the development, is it possible to get like a single track crusher fine trail or something like that for joggers? Because I have bad knees as well, and I hate running on concrete, and dogs as well, right? Especially in, July, August, it's nice to have that section. And I realize it's open space, so there's not really a problem with walking next to the trail, but it might be nice to provide sort of an actual legitimate path next to this concrete for this project, whatever, or in the future. I don't know if that was a question or a comment.
Sure. No, I can absolutely appreciate that, and I can certainly relate with the knees as well. I prefer the soft surface trails as well. My comment to your question about that would be that this portion of the trail is already part of the development and the approved plans, and there is no soft surface trail that is part of the rest of this trail. So if we were to do a soft surface trail, it would essentially dead end. And we talked about this with Kurt and with Adam, and it felt like it didn't make a lot of sense in this location. We certainly do try to mix in soft and hard surface trails. In general, we put them in different locations to help encourage, different experience depending on where you are within the development. I do see trails where you have the concrete right next to a soft surface. Those tend to be the larger regional trails, like the trails that you'll see connect from Fort Collins down through Loveland. That same trail system will eventually connect through Berthoud as well. But you see it a little bit less on these more neighborhood scale trails. So yes, I absolutely appreciate that. My concern would simply be that it would be a trail that didn't have a connection to anything. So it would really be a pretty short portion of the site where we would be adding that.
Okay. Thank you for the trails, by the way. It's really nice to see so much linear feet of walking and bike and pedestrian trails going through your development. That's nice. And for the future connection, is there any future thought about a crossing to, Breckenridge Drive, where the trail is going to dead end into 10, the road that goes to the reservoir? Does the town have any idea of making like a pedestrian crossing there or something like that to get people across 10E to the reservoir?
Yes, the town does have plans to do that.
Okay. And so the pedestrian crossing over the ditch, that could be either the connection. It seems like it would be weird to have like 3 or 4 pedestrian connections all funneling into that Breckenridge Drive, but would it just, I guess there's going to be a sidewalk there, so.
There would be adjacent to County Road 10E that it would kind of those might connect to, and then you'd funnel to one point to cross.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think those are all the questions that I have. This is
Yeah, no,
pretty
it's
straightforward, so.
back.
Yep.
Trustee Hardy?
I got one question, and it's collaborating with the ditch company on the overall appearance and maintenance of that road. That's because I think their access road runs along the south side, which is adjacent to this open space. Is it a possibility that the HOA or Metro District in that area would help collaborate in the maintenance and overall appearance of that, keeping it clean, trash picked up, maybe accessing the road as a soft surface trail with crusher fines, that sort of thing, just to kind of make it look like it's actually a part and not something that's completely separate and not maintained, kind of natural.
So that's a good question. I mean, to be honest with you, oftentimes these access roads, depending on how often they're used, end up becoming kind of a natural soft surface trail anyways. Sometimes they're not accessed all that often, and so it does not feel like that. The ditch company does have an easement for the ditch, and that is their property. I would ask Kim, I'm not sure if you have any specific information on the boundaries for the Metro District and what is maintained. In general, there is a Metro District for this property, and they do maintain the open space, but I'm not sure if they have the authority to maintain property that is part of the ditch company's easement or not. That's something I'd have to look into.
Okay, so is there going to be a fence along there separating the trail and open space from their roadway? Or is it going to be, you can be walking along that trail and be able to walk right over to the ditch with no problem?
Yeah, so there's no fence, and that's pretty typical of trails that run all along ditches throughout Colorado. You know, in general, it's not uncommon for ditch companies to ask for like a chain link fence or a 6 foot tall privacy fence, and that's always something that, you know, folks are trying to negotiate with them to not have, because it really degrades the experience of having those trails along the ditches. You know, I think everyone knows that they have an easement. Does it prevent you from walking onto their easement or their ditch road? No, it doesn't. We certainly don't encourage that, but it helps maintain the open view. It makes it feel more like a natural area, and this is something that you see all through Colorado, where trails are located right next to these ditches. It is something that, you know, the ditch companies have been open to permitting, and luckily haven't made us fence them off so that they're visually obstructed.
So that kind of goes back to my initial question, and that is, since there's no fence and there's no line drawn in the sand, basically, or dirt, of who maintains what and where, that's why I was wondering, will this, will there be a collaboration in maintenance, like who maintains what, or is it going to be kind of like, well, I think I went far enough and mowed the natural grass as far as where we think we are, and vice versa. So I'd just like to be able to keep that area all looking nice, clear up to the cement edge of that ditch, so it doesn't look like it's almost attempted.
Sure, no, and I appreciate that question, and to be honest, I don't have an answer for you today, but I can certainly get that. I don't know if that's something where the Metro District says, yes, you know, we just maintain it because we don't know where the actual boundary is, or if there's some sort of legal ramifications where, you know, they determine, you know, where that division is and don't maintain it. I would assume that there would be collaboration. If it is something where the Metro District is not maintaining it, I would assume that there would be some collaboration between the Metro District and the ditch company. Obviously, the Metro District is going to want this community to look well maintained. The Metro District would be the ones fielding the calls if the neighbors are unhappy with the state of the landscape along that ditch. So that is information we can find out for you. I don't know what the technical components of that agreement between the Metro District and the ditch company might be.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just thinking about where this ditch runs, and if you go north of Berthoud on 2nd Street near the retirement homes up there, they've got grass clear up to the edge of the ditch, and it's all nicely maintained and looks really nice when it runs through there. except for the fact that ditch does get a bunch of debris and stuff in there, and that's up to the ditch company to come through and clean out. But other than that,
Right.
everything looks really nice up to the ditch until you look inside the ditch, but that's a different story.
Yeah. And in general, I mean, that's typically what we see in communities. Like, it happens with parks departments too, right? Where they're like, well, we take it to whatever this natural feature is in terms of maintenance, or the HOA does, because it just, you know, is easier for everyone to understand rather than arbitrary lines. But with that said, I don't want to speak for two entities that I'm not familiar with what agreements they might have. So I would assume that it would be maintained in the manner that the rest of the community is being maintained.
That's it.
All right, Trustee Butler?
This obviously is a pretty, I think, simple matter, or pretty straightforward, I guess, not always simple. But in just relation to this ditch that we're all talking about, my first question is to staff, are there any safety concerns or protection concerns with no fencing, as Mr. Trustee Hardy has brought up? It's gonna be open, so no liability for the town if it's unprotected.
It's not our ditch, so, you know, if the ditch company wants to protect their ditch, they'll have to put in fencing.
I would also say that the natural grass tends to act as a deterrent usually if people don't have an easy access to it. So I'm not saying they won't, but usually it's at least some sort of a deterrent for people trying to walk through the knee-high grass to get through to the ditch.
Sure. And then next question, does this, I was only 24 lots or whatever it was, does it trigger any other road improvements in the area?
No.
No. Okay. And then one question to the applicant, in discussions with the ditch company, have you guys identified any preferred crossing locations? It sounds like you guys are early conversation. I'm just curious if you've identified any best spots.
Right. So the initial look is that it's probably going to make the most sense here, and it would line up nicely with this direct connection to the trail that runs along the ditch and a direct connection into the neighborhood as well. Again, those are technical details we have to get into with the layout of this area, but we did try to consider that at neighborhood master plan as well, simply because it came up as a, something that the town was interested in seeing.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
I know the last time you guys brought this to us, a lot of the stuff you guys actually handled, which I'm very pleased with. I am curious, looks like the tract end, so the duplexes or the apartments just north of this are not included. Is that correct?
They would come back at a future date.
Okay. I guess, could you explain why they broke those to be two separate things, out of curiosity?
I think that's a question for the applicant.
Sure. So as part of our master plan, our neighborhood master plan, we actually envisioned all three of the R3 tracks as separate tracks to kind of move forward on their own timeline. Some of them come down to civil components that may make, one track make more sense to move forward. I mean, obviously being south of the ditch and with this portion of the neighborhood under construction, we have our roads under construction, our utilities and extensions are all right here. So this area will require a little bit more work to bring everything to and to make work. But we did envision as part of that neighborhood master plan, each of these three as likely being separate filings that would move forward.
Okay. I guess the only other question I have is that there's a detention pond kind of on the east side, right there. Just to the right of that, there's actually that Klein Reservoir. Just want to make sure that nobody's going to get feelings hurt with a detention pond right next to a reservoir if that's the natural runoff location.
Right. So this is the low point for this site. It is not intended to hold water. It won't look like the Klein Reservoir. So like most detention ponds in Colorado, it'll capture a storm event, it'll hold it temporarily, and then it will release it at the rates that are required. by the town. So it's really just for like quick storms where you may see some water in the bottom of it, and then it is being released the way it previously was. So we're not keeping any water from flowing where it should flow. We're just making sure that we aren't increasing flows to adjacent properties in a way that would be detrimental.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I guess, and then I have one more question. I guess it's more for staff than anything else. I know Water Drive for this subdivision is the main east and west connector that's actually going to head over to County Road 4. Are there any intentions to stop it and essentially have it go north, kind of close to here? Or is that geographically impossible due to county properties?
Water Avenue?
Yeah, or Water Avenue as it cuts across. Are there any other north-south connections that will be connecting to this? Because
to 4th Street.
Yes, it's specifically this subdivision or this area is the farthest away to get in and out of for this neighborhood. And I'm just curious if there's any other roads that are intended to be placed somewhat closer, or it's just, part of the joy of living here is the drive to.
There won't be any access from the north for vehicles, and there won't be any additional access from the east or the west beyond the roads that are in the subdivision and Water Avenue to the future over 4th Street.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just seeing if there were any other plans to get anything closer.
No.
And nothing at the moment.
The joy of driving through the subdivision.
It's part of the joy of living there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
So, to the east of this, there's no plan for development on that property?
There's not.
Okay. No future, we know there won't be, or this is not worth even looking into?
It's not annexed, there's no plans.
Okay, it's not annexed, okay.
It could be.
It is annexed,
Oh,
but
I'm
it doesn't
sorry.
have any plans.
Thank you, Adam.
Well, is there an opportunity for a stub here? So if there is a future development, has this been
With
talked
the
about?
location of the drainage and the low point, I don't know if that's a possibility.
Have you looked at it, or we just don't know?
No, if you look where the hand is, there's a stub for, future opportunities.
Okay.
But not from the property that they're developing today.
Right, okay, cool, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's actually several stubs along the eastern property boundary that would connect to this county property at whatever time it does develop. So someday in the future, there will be additional access points in and out along the eastern edge of the Vantage subdivision.
Okay. I need to get these questions. So this trail here, this is what we're calling the on the trails master plan?
So
Is there not a trails master plan that has this trail going through it along the Handy?
The Trails Master Plan references the trails that were approved in the original development.
And is that, in that, one of them I think follows the Handy from the Berthoud Reservoir down to Richardson?
It's this trail. Yeah.
Okay, so it's
that
this
was
one.
originally conceived of.
And then in the last filing, or the last one we approved, there's already concrete back there. Is that what we're calling the trail?
The concrete.
There's like a
the-
concrete
that's under
path
construction
by
right
the
now?
ditch? Yeah,
Correct.
that's it?
Correct.
That's like 4 feet.
Yes, we didn't have the trail standards of 6-foot wide minimum trails when that was approved in 2018, I believe.
Okay, so
I don't think it's 4 feet though, is it?
I think it's 5.
okay. What's our standard then, so we can put it on tonight?
It's
Our-
6 feet now.
Oh, so it'll be, it's not even 8?
Not for, and only along, what's it called? Arterial roads.
Oh boy, that's narrow.
Or,
I mean,
the regional trails.
Regional
or
trail
the
corridors.
Oh, don't
NPO.
worry, the runner and joggers will make a 2 foot of soft surface on either side eventually.
Okay, and are we planning on putting in like a crossing once this is approved?
Not immediately, no.
When would
You
we-
mean of the ditch?
Yeah, from the ditch to, essentially to get the Berthoud Reservoir along this. You're saying when Trustee Ayers asked, we have
Yes.
plans, when is
So
that?
we'll have to we'll have to widen the culvert on, we don't have imminent plans to do that. We have plans to do it. We haven't budgeted money to do that.
Widen the culvert on 10E?
Yeah, in order to extend the path west, because the trail up to the reservoir is on the west side of the ditch.
Gotcha.
See what I mean? So this trail will take you up to 10E. You'll have to cross the ditch at 10E
Mm-hmm.
and then go up. If their subdivision, if the development on the north side of the ditch develops prior to that, and they build a ditch crossing in that area that Kristen mentioned before, kind of just south of her cursor, then you can go through, you'll be able to go through that way and we won't have to extend the culvert, so.
Well, that makes sense. If we could get this bridge going across, I'm sure we don't have any bridge width standards for pedestrians or bikes.
I think, no, we do not have bridge standards for bikes and pedestrians today. I think there are good bridge standards out there. We don't have any adopted ones.
I'm worried about that also being like 4 foot.
We wouldn't, I'll be honest, we wouldn't allow a 4-foot bridge crossing.
Also, that bridge, based off neighborhood master plans, traffic study for the overall thing, the portion north of the ditch here, if I remember correctly, should trigger some improvements to that bridge that would potentially have to go hand in hand with the development. So,
you're talking about the box culvert?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thanks. Anything else before we open up the public? All right, this time I'll open the public portion of the hearing. If anyone in the room or online would like to speak to this agenda item. Okay, we have, no one has signed up. Is there anyone that wishes to speak that hasn't signed up? Okay, is there anyone online?
No, there is nobody.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for deliberation and a vote. It sounds like we're mostly in favor of this. Anything else you'd like to add? I guess we can just go down the line. Trustee Butler, you feel good about it?
Yes, but you brought some really good questions or comments about this being part of more of a regional trail that I hadn't personally considered. This certainly does need to be connected to the reservoir north, which I think that'll come. But we don't know, when this multifamily will necessarily get developed. And I don't think we can necessarily bank on that happening anytime soon. So we need to go ahead and plan accordingly. That's my thoughts. Everything else that's fine.
Yeah, I feel the same. Trustee Hardy, anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, it looks logical to do that. So, and like she said, trying to cram something up in that upper hook just wouldn't fit. So,
Looks logical to do what?
to just do the little U-shaped horseshoe there to add those homes on the top.
Oh,
there.
I got you. Yeah, all right. Okay.
And making the little hook undevelopable.
Mhm.
But it'll be kind of, it is kind of interesting to see how that would go north to the lake through like Breckenridge Drive or whatever that road is that goes to the west side of the ditch on up to the lake. I don't know if that's public or private drive, but yeah. But that's someone else's
Public,
private
right?
property there.
The ditch trail to the reservoir from 10. Well, I've been using it. I hope it's public.
Yeah,
There's signs on it.
It is. It's not public vehicle access, but we have a pedestrian gate in there and you can absolutely go up.
So they'll be able to access across the street, cross the bridge, and then go up that trail to the lake. Cool. Sweet.
You feel good? Okay. Trustee Ayers?
Yeah, same comments. I don't have any really thing to add.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Same.
So I feel like this kind of concerns me because I was there again today, but I took pictures before when I was riding with my buddy, and that path is really narrow. I would not call that a trail. And if this is one day going to connect Berthoud Reservoir to Richardson, I see that as a positively. I mean, I hope it'll be a really busy trail. Also a shortcut to get to the rec center, also to get to schools. So I would, even 6 seems kind of small to me. And I really like your idea of pressure fine on the side. I mean, in the Bike and Ped Collaborative, the standard is 10 feet wide with pressure fine on the side. And I know this isn't a regional trail, but I think it's totally appropriate to say 8 feet wide and have pressure fine on the side. And one day, and Ms. Turner, I totally agree with you. I was just writing down all the different ditch trails that I've been on. And I can't find them now, but basically, you're right. A lot of them are the trails that turn into the ditch trail, the road that turns into a trail eventually. Barnes Ditch is a great example in Loveland. And I think they're fantastic. So I wanted to add that into it. Thank you for doing this. This is a rare opportunity to have a ditch trail. And I know I'm being picky here, but it's kind of because I love it. you saw from the previous presentation maybe, that there's kind of pushes to get water out of developments. So when you have a rare opportunity to kind of be next to one and hopefully beautify it a bit, it's really neat. But I just think this is kind of our chance here with this section. We kind of missed it with the last one to have a properly wide trail for this. So 6 feet, is that a town-wide regional standard you're saying for?
No, our regional trail standard is 10 feet concrete.
Okay. But we're not calling this a regional trail though, right?
It was not in the original trails master plan.
Is it in the current one?
I've been looking for it, and I'm sorry.
I believe it is, otherwise I can't really push this.
I don't believe so. Because this development was approved a long time ago with a different standard. I think that in the master plans that carried forward, they just continued to use the approved development. I know, like in the 2018 master plan, I know for a fact it was just called out as a developer-built trail because that was the original plan from the originally approved development. I don't know why I'm having a hard time I'm having a hard time getting into my file system, so I haven't been able to pull up the.
Ms. Turner, do you have anything against or have any strong feelings about us putting a condition or something on this for an 8-foot wide trail? Instead of the sidewalk that's in there right now?
Right, so I would ask, we have Kim with D.R. Horton on the line as well, so I'd ask her to unmute, or she can be unmuted to weigh in on that. Some considerations, I think if we were going to do that, is obviously there would have to be a transition from the existing trail to widening the trail. So that's just something you'd have to keep in mind, is that, you know, it would be for just this section, and we'd have to create that, that transition between the two. You know, I think I was trying to look up quickly. Adam, do you know, I couldn't remember if we did 6 or 8 on this one.
It was 6.
It was 6.
What about,
Okay.
when the bridge or they're talking about doing a bridge across the ditch here to go to the apartments. And when you get to the north of 10E, the trail actually jumps to the west side of the ditch. So why not require an 8-foot wide or a 10-foot wide bridge with that 10-foot trail going to the north up to the lake that way? And address it when they do the northern part with the apartments.
And you're saying put the trail on the north side
So
of the
if you
ditch?
start at the town reservoir and work your way south along that west side of the ditch that comes into here, do the 10-foot trail from the town lake down to 10E, cross 10E, run it along the north side of this ditch to the proposed bridge, which will then come down through this little gap in those couple homes there to the street, and make that the 10-foot corridor that goes right up to the reservoir.
So my thoughts when we were looking at the other one was that bridge was kind of just for that development. Is that the idea here, or are we looking at that bridge to shuttle all of our recreation through?
Yeah, I mean, it would be publicly accessible.
Right, but is it, okay. I think a 10-foot wide bridge seems pretty, I mean, that's great if we could do it, but I think we really, I'd like to hold on here to see if we're looking at our current Trails Master Plan, if that's in it.
The current Trails Master Plan just shows as a planned neighborhood trail. It's not part of our regional trail system.
So the regional trail, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the regional trail runs along Berthoud Parkway, and that is where we have our 10-foot concrete trail that runs.
And that looks great.
And that's true.
Property.
And that gets a lot of use. Is D.R. Horton on there? Is there any consideration? Was it Kim you said?
Yes.
Yes, we would be open to looking into it to see if it fits in with the space that's available and can be blended with the existing trail system.
Okay, and the previous section, I think that's something, I mean, this might be a decade in the future, but someone's going to look back and say that should have been wider. And that might be something the town has to foot the bill for, but I mean, we're having a regional, not world-class Richardson Park, you know, right there, and the reservoir is awesome, and I think we really want 8 feet, so I would love to make that a condition if the board agrees.
I agree with that.
Okay. Well, that's it. Otherwise, I think this is great. You guys, is that all right with adding that as a condition?
Yeah, trails are a big topic in this town.
But just for this, I'm sorry, but just for this north
section that follows the ditch that would connect to the northern section of the other part of the
This,
development.
for the ditch part of the section we're looking at, the ditch trail.
So nothing jumping south.
Nothing jumping south, right?
Mayor Karspek, if I may ask for some clarification just from my perspective. You're asking to have the trail along the along the southern part of the ditch on the northern side of this property, all the way from to the edge of this property be 8 feet, and then shrink back down to the existing, I think it's 5 foot wide trail that goes the rest of the way. Is that correct?
Yes.
With the expectation that maybe in the future it's the town.
Someone's gonna have to go back. I mean, I think we made a mistake and we're gonna have to correct it.
I would agree with that. I would say the one thing is that trail is on private property with the public access easement. So the property that the trail to the west is on is owned by the Metro District.
Probably
So I don't
true.
know. The attorney or the town administrator may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how much legal ramification we have to go in and do that for them. A different alternative could be perhaps that on the north side of the trail this extension is made. There are 2 existing properties that are not annexed into the town, that if they were to ever develop, they have that 8 foot wide trail, and that potentially when the track to the north with the duplexes comes online, that has the 8 foot wide trail that can connect, should the properties that are kind of on the corner of Earth and Parkway and Tenny ever annex into town and develop further, that they provide that extension throughout that way instead of having.
That's kind of what Trustee Hardy was saying. I mean, yes, it is private property with a public right of way on it, and I'm just saying add 3 feet to that section. I guess we'd need to know how wide that right of way is, right? How much?
It's not
It would
right.
just be something we couldn't do without their permission, I think is what Adam is suggesting. It's not that it couldn't be done, it just, we couldn't go and do it ourselves.
We're not the property owner.
It not being the underlying property owner, right?
So we can't make this a condition, is what you're saying?
No, I think what Adam's saying is just for the property to the west that's already built. So it's not
If
that
we
you
require-
can't here, I think they're already willing to look at an 8 foot trail, at least that's, I think what I heard.
If we require this
We can
section
go
to
ahead
be
and
8
put it in
foot,
here, and I think we might as well, if they're willing to do that, and then in the future, if there's the ability to expand that trail connection to the west that's already constructed, we could do that in partnership with the Metro District if they're willing to do so.
if we require this section to be 8 foot,
We just can't do it ourselves.
Oh, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
That's what Adam's saying.
I got you, yeah. Right, I got you. Yeah, that makes total sense, sorry.
so if we're saying if we make this section 8 foot, do you think that Metro District might be motivated to then make their trail 8 foot eventually? During maintenance?
I wouldn't even attempt to guess at what they'd be motivated to do.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're all, we're all supportive of that?
So we're adding in the amendment to 8 foot for the north section of the trail only. So essentially the section of trail that goes just south of the ditch.
Along the ditch.
Along the ditch on the south side, yeah.
Along the ditch on the south side.
Right.
Shall be 8 feet.
Shall be.
Shall be.
So for my clarity, I believe what you're saying is that you're gonna require the 8 foot trail within this 6 filing boundary,
Correct.
correct? So it's just what we have shown right here.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. I was about to say, Mr. Attorney, you want to make the motion? That was such a great wording there, I almost threw it over to you. Would anyone like to move on this?
Let me get the language written in real quick. I move to approve the Vantage 6 filing preliminary plat, finding that it satisfies section 30-6-107C of the Berthoud Municipal Code with the following conditions. 1, that the applicant continues the ongoing discussion with the ditch company regarding the trail crossing, and 2, that the trail south of the ditch shall be 8 feet in width.
Excellent. It's your second.
Second.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Grace has moved on this. Trustee Hardy has seconded. Any other amendments? Final discussion? All right, clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Ayers?
Yes.
Trustee Butler?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace?
Yes.
Trustee Hardy?
Yes.
Mayor Karspek?
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Turner, and everyone on the phone, on the line. Everyone in the audience, too, because we'll just move right on to reports here. We'll start off with Trustee Hardy.
A couple things. HPAC, Historic Preservation Committee, has designated a new home for our home of extraordinary value or of means, and that's that 330 Massachusetts Avenue. It's downtown. It's right next to the Moon Theater. It's owned by the same person. He owns both the Moon Theater and this house, the old McCarty doctor's house. He completely gutted the inside, put in new wiring, HVAC drywall, repainted the outside, put a new porch on. It is looking very nice down in Massachusetts. He's done an excellent job with that. So if you haven't had a chance to go see what he's done, to see what got its award, then.
So this is on the north side, kind of right next to the old police station?
Between it's to the west of the police station. It's between the old blacksmith shop and the Moon Theater.
Okay, cool.
It's Dr.
Yeah,
McCarty.
great.
It's the doctor's office. It's a little white house. White room. Birthday Main Street meetings are last Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. We still have a few seats open on the board to fill if anybody's interested in doing more work with downtown and Main Street activities. Invite you to email birth@mainstreet.org if you're interested in that. The other thing that's happening this week is the movie finale of the Movies in the Park that has been going on for the last couple of Thursdays. It's this Thursday, the 11th, Kung Fu Panda. It's their big finale. They'll have snacks and trips, and Lions Club will be down there, and they'll be serving hot dogs and stuff. So if you guys want to get out on Thursday night, come watch a movie, bring the family, bring a lawn chair, bring a blanket, you'll be set. That's it.
Yeah, what time is it, 7?
After sunset. So they'll be down there about 6 o'clock setting up. And then once it gets dark enough, they'll start the movie.
So I saw an Eventbrite thing. Do you have to sign up, or do you just sign up to eat, or do you know what that means?
Yeah, there is an Eventbrite. I don't have the link handy, but yeah, I can put it on the Birth and Main Street Facebook page.
Okay, cool. Do we need that? Okay. I didn't know if we needed to use Eventbrite if we want to eat, because I saw something about hot dogs.
Yeah, they're just trying to get kind of an idea of how many people
Oh,
show
okay.
up.
All right, cool.
So they've been getting about 150, 200 people down there for movies.
Awesome. Cool. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Trustee Butler?
I don't have anything.
All right, thanks. Trustee Ayers?
Unfortunately, there was no port meeting this month. They didn't get a quorum, and that is actually really unfortunate because they were going to be talking about new bike signage across town. So I will give that update whenever they meet. It looks pretty spiffy,
Cool.
so I'm kind of excited on that. I have actually a couple questions on that now. What classifications do we have for the trails in Berthoud? Because it seems to me that the question that just came up about this one, that ditch trail that goes from Tenney down to Berthoud Parkway seems like it's a perfect regional trail, but would it be, I guess, helpful if we sort of got a separate classification for regional trail versus, city trail, and then maybe something that's like, I don't know, municipal or something that's in between that could make those kinds of trails within these developments that are going around the exterior or that are just through trails as a separate category, so that we can kind of narrow that down, because obviously 8 feet for going through a neighborhood is that's obnoxious for an 8-foot trail to go through a neighborhood. But maybe if it's on the exterior of a neighborhood, or if it's just going through one of these developments, that it is automatically 6 feet as opposed to 8 feet, so that it's easier to categorize it with these developers. Is that something?
Yeah, I think, the Trails Master Plan did not do that. That was just adopted last year. But I think that's a reasonable point to be made, that within the context, neighborhood trails, as outlined in the Trails Master Plan, can be between 6 and 8 feet wide. And so I think clarifying where 8-foot wide trails should go versus 6-foot wide trails is an easy thing to do.
Okay.
And I think based on the discussion tonight, I think we all have a pretty good idea what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that are regional trails that are intended to be 10-foot wide concrete, and those are outlined on the Trails Master Plan as well.
Right, and those are kind of non-issues. Those are
I think those are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Unless there are other areas where we wanted to put regional trails that we didn't in the neighborhood master plan, that would be a different conversation. But yes, I think clarifying and distinguishing between when is a 6-foot trail appropriate and when it's an 8-foot wide neighborhood trail appropriate is an easy thing for us to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a good suggestion.
And then my last question would be, who owns the sign at 4th and Mountain by the old movie theater? And is that possible for the town to put announcements there? Because it's a wonderful old sign that is just there.
Do you mean the one that's not really a sign, that's more of a sign frame on a pole?
Yes.
Oh, in front of Panthers Gate?
We don't own that.
So Panthers Gate owns that?
It's an interesting question.
Okay.
It's within the right of way. You know, it's not been used in a long time. Honestly, well, Adam's left already. There's some, our current code actually doesn't allow pole signs. Although in that case, much like the A&W sign, I don't know if we would ever want it to be taken down.
Right.
Because it's iconic. It's sort of iconic. So I guess the answer is I don't have an answer for you, but it's something we can look into.
Okay, because I'd like to utilize it because it's not being used.
We were just talking about that sign like a week ago.
Okay.
Like, do we have any
And what a
funds
bummer
left?
is that it's just there.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have the funds left that Walt was managing from COVID to do facade upgrades in Main Street?
We've continued to budget those. They were in our budget this year, and we do have some funds still available for sign grants and facade improvement grants. So we have issued a few, but we still have funds available this year. So that might be something we could even reach out to the property owner and discuss that with them. It's interesting because it hasn't been a sign for a long time. You know. Well, anyway, I don't want to debate the legalities of legal non-conforming uses and all those things tonight.
Off-premise?
Well, yeah, off-premise signage and all this other stuff. But in any case, I think we, you know, from a staff perspective, I think we agree generally with the sentiment you're expressing. I would assume the rest of the board is supportive.
I love the concept.
Yeah, me too.
That's all.
I'll piggyback on that,
Yeah,
because
so
I
we'll
noticed,
look into that.
it made me think of something else I forgot to mention, I'll piggyback on you, is the Tree City USA flag down by the railroad tracks. It's looking really tattered. Is there a way we can get a new one?
I'm sure there is. I'll talk to Paul, our new forester, and see if he can get that figured out for us.
Oh, sorry, that also brought something back up. Any word from the railroad about fixing the crossing?
Yes. I actually have a specific response. It's actually from CDOT, who was coordinating with the railroad. I'll try to summarize this and not have to look the email up, but in general, CDOT said that the railroad and CDOT have no interest in third-party participation, ergo, the town can stay out of it. That while it is on their radar, it's not a priority. It's possible it could happen as early as November of getting improved, or it's possible that it could be next year sometime whenever they feel like getting around to it.
Okay, because it's starting to be a danger, especially for motorcycles.
Yeah, I think we have pushed back and said we hear you, but it needs to be a priority because. But they said we have other higher priority crossings along the route. But yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we did offer, like, if we help pay for it, would that expedite things? And that's when they were like, we're not interested in third-party participation. Thank you, but no thank you. So.
Interesting.
Oh, CDOT.
I think it's probably more the railroad and CDOT's defense, but I don't know. I wasn't part of the conversation, so I guess I shouldn't speculate.
Let's go put some shims on it.
Could do some.
Anything else?
Somebody told me a story
No, I'm
about
not.
a storm drain pipe that just got bored under the railroad tracks at one point, like in the dark of night.
Oh, yeah, the Tom Patterson, yeah, right next to Jeff's house.
But I think this would
It is
take
a flooding
little,
issue.
This would be a little more difficult than.
Yeah, there was like an immediate flooding issue, so they're like, we can't get approval, and they just did.
Good lord.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So the Scorch Fest was this last weekend, I believe it was the 28th, Friday and Saturday, the last Friday and Saturday of July. Went over pretty well, pretty steady attendance. Yeah, it was a lot of really cool, just hanging out, lots of kids slowly showing up, playing around on everything, and slowly wandering away. Got to go race the mayor a couple times, and I don't know.
You lost.
Who I lost?
Yeah.
I don't, that's not how I recall it.
Is there footage?
I sure saw it, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, that happened. Otherwise, so I just thought of one. Nope, lost it. I'm done.
All right, we'll come back to it. Let's see here. Behavioral Health Policy Council is on the 22nd of this week. I missed the last week's meeting, or last month's meeting, so I'll report out on that at the end of this month. At the NPO meeting last Thursday at Johnstown, we had a greenhouse gas rulemaking update on this new law of conforming to this in the North Front Range, and we all thought it was really interesting. But the models we did, we are in great shape for there's three markers: 2025, 2030, and 2050. And 2050 is where you really have to curb down your emissions. And the NPO looks at future planning from CDOT models. Also, they look at kind of our local municipal, I guess I'd say standards, and then our transportation plans, the amount of bicycle amenities, trails, bike lanes, EV chargers, all that, and it goes into this model. And apparently, we are good for 2025, 2030, and 2050, which really surprised me. So, yes. That'll be finally presented to the Transportation Commission of CDOT. But it sounds, we had a Transportation Commissioner at our meeting, and it sounds like we were good to go on that, which is really impressive. As I understand, the Mustang Mobility Hub will be complete by the end of this month. Did you hear anything about this? Okay. I'll follow up with Heather at CDOT, but that'd be pretty neat if that's the case. It sounds like September's Loveland's Mobility Hub will be completed. And at that point, I think we need to get the board out there.
Agreed. That's on my list.
Okay, great. Because also we should look into art. Loveland's putting art inside their giant tunnel, and maybe we could see if we get someone from Wildfire or something.
We've talked already. Well, we have obviously the sculptures that are going in the roundabouts and the landscape plan that you'll see on the August 23rd board meeting. August 30th study session we'd like to host. And then, but we've talked about doing murals through the tunnels.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because when we did the sculpture, some of you may remember this, when we did the sculpture RFP, we got a lot of proposals from artists who really hadn't done any sculpture work of that magnitude, and definitely not within CDOT right of way. And so there was only a couple of sculptors that we really felt comfortable working with. But we got some awesome proposals from awesome muralists. And so at the time we said, hey, as soon as this thing's done and we can paint a mural inside those tunnels, it'd be really cool. And actually, along the concrete wall that goes under the bridge under I-25 as well. At least that would be our suggestion to you at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here in the reasonably near future, I think.
I don't think this will mean that the busting will start immediately. I think
It
there's
will not.
years off still, right? They need to
as far as I
finish
understand, that
all of
won't
them.
be happening anytime soon,
Yeah.
but it'll be effectively complete.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You can still get out there.
As a side note, and I'm sorry to hijack.
You're not.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Perspective. They are not landscaping the mobility hub.
Okay.
They expect us to do that and to maintain in the future. So we'll have to figure out how to do that. But
Interesting. Okay.
we haven't signed an agreement with them to maintain their facility yet, but I think they're expecting us to. So anyway.
Trade off there, yeah.
Yeah.
The Front Range Rail District meeting, we just did swearing in as commissioners. Looked at and updating our bylaws. We're looking for kind of an attorney with some rail experience, but over the last couple of meetings, the bylaws have been pretty fine-tuned. And now we have an annual kind of free pass with the Special District Administration. So we're also working with them on really how to set up a special district. We're just a bunch of really new people at this, and all appointed or elected. So looking for an attorney and all that, and to get this going. We'll have our executive director starting soon. That's kind of exciting. Let's see here. There's a presentation next week. It's called it's a Northwest Rail presentation. It's in Greeley. I'll be going. But basically, it's a group that is looking at a regional trail or regional rail all the way to Oregon, Utah, California, and stuff. So they presented to the NPO, or rather, they contacted us at the NPO and wanted to present. So I'll be up there next Wednesday if you guys have any interest. It's from 3 to 4 at Greeley City Hall. I could send out the invite just in case you guys wanted to go. I know it's midday, so I don't know why they chose that time. I went on a Chimney Hollow tour today through Barnard Construction just because I do deliveries for them, and I've been complaining long enough that they finally took me out there to shut me up. But it's so amazing that I can't wait. I really hope we can get Northern or someone, maybe Barnard, to get the board out there. It is.
Northern has offered a couple times, and we told them originally, I don't know, maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, but we wanted to wait until we had a full board, which we do now. And then we said we also have a handful of other things. We want to take them on a tour of our facilities and have a retreat and a whole bunch of other stuff. But they said, just call us whenever you're ready. We'd love to take the board on a tour, and we can organize it just for you guys if you want.
Oh, right. Oh, it's just incredible to see the framework. I mean, largest asphalt dam in the nation, largest dam in the nation built in the last 25 years, and the largest dam built in Colorado in the last 50 years. You get there, it's just like, there's people up there, you're just so tiny. Oh, you guys just have to see it, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Finally, I just learned something interesting last weekend. I was at the Wagner Farm, so Root Shoots Malting releases Wagner Farm, and then their malt also like City Star uses and stuff. So I got a ticket to go to that, and Colorado Open Lands were there, and I didn't know Wagner Farm is the largest farm that Colorado Open Lands has ever preserved. Which I thought was really impressive. And the other thing I learned is they created on their conservation easement a building envelope on Mountain Avenue. I don't know if they told you that, but.
And for clarity for everybody else, it dawned on me a minute ago. You're talking about the Wagner Farm Conservation
East
of town, not Wagner Farm.
You're right.
Park.
Definitely should have clarified that. Sorry. Yeah. East of town is the largest they've ever done. And they created a little building envelope on Mountain Avenue. So I think that'd be really interesting to look at of what that envelope is. What kind of density and standard, they think this is going to be a county property or something the town would want to look at. But overall, yeah, that was really neat. So that's the end of my report. I did have some, Chris, with Administrator Kirk with pictures. I had two different people, and a little over a week contact me with pictures of the graveyard. I'll forward them on to you, just some weeds and stuff. So
Yeah, I think I've probably been in contact with the same folks.
Okay, cool, great, fantastic. Well, that's it. Thanks. Turn it over to staff.
Just a couple quick things for me. Tonight was probably the last virtual presentation we will have from an applicant or consultants that are even working for us. We've been doing that, and actually we had kind of changed policy internally, but we hadn't notified Kristen that we would expect her to be here in person. So we won't have those technical difficulties in the future because we'll be telling everyone you either present in person or we put you off until another meeting.
Great. Makes sense.
Just I think we're in a place where we can do that again, and it's much more functional to have them here at the podium. So just a side note for you.
You're not gonna, I'm sorry to interrupt, you're not gonna cancel the
No, we'll continue to have
broadcast.
Zoom broadcasts,
Okay.
absolutely. We may go to all virtual broadcasts through like YouTube. That'll be up to you guys if you want to continue to allow public comment virtually. A lot of agencies have done away with that now, and if you want to comment, you come to the meeting. And then we can just go back to a virtual broadcast where you can watch but you can't participate. And maybe that's something we can talk about at a future meeting if you guys would like.
I like the idea of at least like, so all those consultants that they bring along with them, would they necessarily be doing that? They all had to be there in person. So I wonder if there's a way to keep all the consultants.
They do typically bring their whole team. Like tonight for the Farmstead, the 5 people that were sitting there were their traffic and engineering.
Okay. Yeah.
So in case you had any questions, and that's how we used to do it prior to the pandemic. So
I can't remember anything before the pandemic.
I know it feels like it was 100 years ago.
It was, and yesterday at the same time.
And yesterday. Thank you everybody for responding to the board retreat email. I think we've nailed down a couple dates. I sent out another email this afternoon, and several of you have already responded to confirm whether we want to do a Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Thursday. So if you haven't responded, please do, and we'll get that finally nailed down here in the next couple days. We do want to conduct a tour, as I mentioned before. Our thought is that we would take you to all the places where you wouldn't be able to go on your own, or that you may not have gone because they're not really publicly accessible. So places like our water and wastewater treatment plants, the Jaskowski property that's not publicly accessible, maybe to the Richardson property where you might not have gone before because of the way it's situated, and a handful of other locations around town, including the Mobility Hub and Turion and the regional wastewater plant out by I-25. We'll get in the BATS bus. It'll seat like 12 of us. We can just make the loop around town. I can drive, or Brian, my assistant, he's a good BATS bus driver. We've done a couple other tours. But my question to you is, would you guys prefer to do that in the evening? Like an afternoon, late afternoon, early evening tour, or like a Saturday morning? Is there a preference among the board?
You'd be racing against the sun setting as we go later in the fall.
We would. I think that it's probably, an hour and a half to 2 hour kind of tour. It depends. I mean, the last time we did a big tour, we went to the wastewater plant. I thought that would be 20 minutes when we were there for an hour.
It was so awesome.
Because it was,
Yeah.
to me, it's the most fascinating
It's so
thing we
cool.
do, but I didn't think anybody else would care, but everybody was really interested, and so it kind of depends on what you want to see, but.
And you're trying to tie this into the retreat, or this is a totally separate thing?
I think they are related, but they can be separate. More than anything, we want to get the new trustees out to see things they haven't seen before. That even includes less recently new trustees.
COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
But we all know how the 2-hour tour got jinxed by Gilligan's Island. So.
That was a 3-hour tour.
I don't have
Was
a
it
problem
3
either
hours?
way. I mean, I don't have a preference either way. If we could tie it to a retreat time, that'd be great, because then we'll all be here.
I
But
think that
just adds
doing
more
it in
time, huh?
conjunction with the retreat will be tough. Because if
Okay.
we plan 2 4-hour blocks for the retreat, which is what we've done in the past, and I think, you guys will know, we fill those 4-hour blocks.
Yeah.
And then
I think
about
it's
4.5 hours, we
Yeah,
start
I was gonna say that my preference would be a Saturday.
I think Saturday would work best for all of us working stiffs.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of thought that might be the case, and we could do like an early morning, grab donuts, and then hit the road, kind of deal.
Donuts? I'll be there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll look for a Saturday. We just need to make sure that we have staffing, because actually the plants typically run fully automated on the weekends. They're all controlled through SCADA, supervisory control of data acquisition systems, but anyway.
Well, do you need,
No, but if that's the preference, we can make that work, so we'll look for a Saturday morning. I'll shoot you guys all some dates, and then we'll start there if that
cartoons, but
works.
that's okay.
What was that?
Cut into my cartoons, but
we can bring a little TV one.
Yeah, TiVo. Good
Little kid in the back seat.
You
with
can
his little
stream,
monitor.
you can stream cartoons from your phone now.
What? I'm old. I don't know how to do that.
Let's see. Lastly, we are currently advertising for 16 different positions, 7 of which are full-time. So if you know anybody that's looking for a job, send them to the town board or to the town website. We've got positions from maintenance techs for streets, parks, open space. We've got a communications or community outreach specialist position we'd like to hire that'll handle communications, marketing, event support, be liaison to community groups.
Cool.
We've got an IT tech position to bring most of our
In-house?
IT functions back in-house.
Great.
Yeah.
We've been relying on a contractor for a few years since our former IT professional retired. We'd like to get that back in-house. So there's a long list of positions, and it's, as you know, it's challenging to find folks today, but so I'm bringing it up here in the hope that someone might be listening.
Yeah.
Hear that, Lynn? We're counting on you.
That's what we're doing. This is all acted out just so we can get you to apply.
That's right.
Post office already asked me.
But anyway, so lots going on at Town Hall, so thank you.
That was it?
That was it.
Okay, Attorney Smith?
I have nothing.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? All right, adjourn the meeting. Have a great night, everyone.